absolutely fantastic prospect that we have here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Shortest track we have on the calendar, which will be kind of interesting. Certainly when you get 40 cars on track a little bit later for PESC. But with these guys in the 718 especially, momentum car, you've got a lot of flow through these corners. Some would say it's 16 corner track. Officially, it's 12. The other part's called the S's. They don't give them numbers. But yeah, a lot of flow, a lot of undulation, and quite technical. Nice long straightaway as well in the back between turns 7 and 10. So drafting is certainly a factor. We know as well, though, that the Cayman doesn't draft as much as the Cup car, but we did see closer, I would say, grouping sort of front to back in the All-Stars last time out in Silverstone with this car, so it should be a pretty exciting day for the All-Stars.
Yeah, we did. There's a reminder of what the schedule is for this season. We are basically slap bang right in the middle of the season. Road Atlanta for round number 5, our only American circuit on the calendar, but we still remain in North America for next time around as we head to round 6 at Montreal. That's going to be the final race in the 718 Cayman GT4 CSs. Then we move on to the 911 RSR, the GTE machines, for Spa, Nürburgring, and Le Mans. And of course, for that grand finale, well, we do not know which car is going to be featured for that event, so we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to live with the suspense for now. But here's a reminder of the format for these All-Stars event. Of course, fixed setup. You're not going to be able to change really much, if anything, on the car. Of course, maybe some tire pressures, maybe some brake bias, but that is going to be it. 10 minutes of qualifying, 3 flying laps. That is solo qualifying, no one else out there on circuit to help you or hinder you. And then we move on to a sprint race of 17 minutes, and then we'll get a feature race of 22 minutes. It's worth keeping in mind that the feature race grid is a complete reverse grid from the results of the sprint race. And, well, it's been pretty spicy in a couple of rounds so far this season. There's no reason why the feature race can't be as exciting this time around, Matt.
Absolutely the case. And we've got Matty Campbell back with us as well in the Cayman, which is interesting because he obviously took 2 rounds off and still sits 4th in the championship. Emery's taken over the lead after a phenomenal performance at Silverstone, whereas Dan Suzuki's been very consistent and is absolutely still in the picture. And then it's pretty wide open from there on. I mean, it's been pretty good all the way through. Obviously, there was one penalty given to Quick Gabby Connery, which wasn't ideal, but knocked her 10 points down in the standings.
Yep, it did. So, but she's still embroiled in that battle for around about P5. Xavier Sanchez, you got Depiello, Gabby, all within just a handful of points of each other, just inside the top 10 in the standings. So it's going to be a very interesting fight down there for those positions. Drivers are just about to head into their qualifying session in just a couple of moments' time, but yeah, this series has gotten a bit of a reputation of actually being some actually amazing racing in some aspects. Of course, we had a little bit of a scrappy end to Silverstone, which is where that penalty for Gabby came in. But these guys have, and girls, of course, have not been afraid of going door to door through many corners, sectors at a time, and giving each other good racing room, which is what we love to see.
Yes, well, absolutely. And there was some incidents earlier in the year where the driving standards maybe weren't all there, but it seems like everyone's put in the time. The last couple of races have been excellent. We've seen some really good battling. You may not see the pace out of these guys that you would out of what we're going to see a little bit later on with the professionals, the PESC drivers, but you are seeing some great door-to-door, which is all we could ask for with the All-Stars, especially because it's a warm-up for that, but it's entertaining in its own right, and to have great racing is just an absolute bonus. We've also got another great sim racer involved this week, Connery.
Yeah, making his first appearance in the series, it is the one, the only Matt Malone. So turns up halfway through the season. Let's see how far he can get up the standings by the time Monza rolls around. Currently, he's getting himself towards the start of his first flying lap here at Road Atlanta.
Travel restrictions, Connery. Is the American, and we're on the American track.
Maybe, just maybe. We can have a little bit of a think about that. But we're on board with Matt Malone now as he heads in towards Tinderbourne, that very fast right-hander as you start to climb up the hill. Turn 2 isn't really much of a turn at all. It's just this slight movement to the left, and then turn 3, blind apex. Try and launch the car over that curve, but be very careful, otherwise the car's going to get very upset. And this here, down the hill, through the S's section where you can really get stuck behind some slower traffic, and then a very tricky exit at turn 5 coming up right up over the curb, right out over into the runoff. But you got to be careful of the bumps there, otherwise you're going to send the car into a concrete wall, either on the inside or on the outside. It doesn't seem to matter. Now into turn 6, just got the car in quite neatly, and then turn 7 is going to be crucial during the race. You've got to get a good launch off of here because there's a very, very long back straight coming up, and, well, you need all the help you can get to make those passes happen down into the turn 10A and 10B chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting one because the turn 6, obviously, you mentioned Petit Le Mans. We saw the why is his name eluding me right now? Pipo Derani move last year that definitely ruffled a few feathers, I think is a way of putting it, in IMSA. But it's actually a place you want to be trying to set up rather than go for a pass. And it's so tempting because it also has a run into it. So it's a bit of a conflict, but it does open up. Look how focused Matt is right now. That is the man that is absolutely zoned in at the moment. But you're right. You want to get a good exit out of 7, get the run on to 8, and then try and make the move down into sort of 10A, 10B, the complex, before the end of the lap, because the rest of it is so twisty. It's going to be very hard to find an overtaking opportunity, and that is sort of one of the characteristics of Road Atlanta. You're trying to force the guys into mistakes. You're trying to get momentum and get runs on people. Definitely between 5 and 6 is possible, but if you don't get it done, you're going to lose that opportunity on the long straightaway.
There's your championship leader at the moment, Emily Jones, and she also has set the fastest time provisionally here in qualifying, but of course the drivers have around about 2 flying laps to go to trying to surmount her time. She did a 1:27.3 on her fastest lap here, and the closest driver is Dan Suzuki, so that's second place in the championship at 1:27.5. So the front row consists of your 2 championship contenders at the moment as Emily wheels the car coming through turn 7. She seems pretty relaxed, not as laser focused as Matt was.
No, not at all. But obviously, Matt's coming fresh into the championship, whereas Emery is super composed and used to it by now as we look on board with another Matt Campbell. He had pole position in his 2 appearances when we were in the Cup car. As we said, he didn't do the last 2 rounds. He obviously was off at doing the real-life Daytona 24-hour with Faf. They led their class early in the race. I want to say it was a gearbox issue. I can't remember exactly what it was that took him out of contention, but drove well, and first time in the car with the Faf team, which he'll be running a little bit more with later in the season. So good to see that start for him in the real world. But back here with us today, see if he can get another pole position, different car, different machine. Maybe he's not as burst with the Cayman. We'll see how much practice he got in with this weapon. I like this car a lot. I actually did in iRacing. Didn't last long. We had a teammate that got us into the wall, which, hey, fair game. We were doing it for fun anyway. But we did the Nürburgring 24-hour in this car last year, and I really enjoyed it around the Nordschleife. I actually thought it flowed very well. You just got to let the car do its thing. You can't overdrive this car.
And in some ways, it won't let you overdrive it. Of course, it is a GT4 machine. It's not the most powerful car out there. Definitely not as powerful as the 911 GT3 Cup cars, of course, which we'll see a little bit later on. Of course, you have a lot more assists in this car as well. You have the traction control, you have the ABS, which is sorely lacking in the 911 Cup GT3 car. So it does make it a little bit trickier in that aspect, but these cars a lot more comfortable and a lot better for inexperienced drivers, I would say.
Yeah, it's a pretty aggressive ABS too, so there's still a bit of a tactic to it, no doubt. You still want to be pretty accurate with your braking foot, but you're right, it's a little more forgiving in that sense, whereas the Cup car is just going to walk and you're going to go sailing off. This will at least try and coax you to make the corner still, so you're right, you can't really overdrive these much. And GT4 Worldwide is an interesting class as well because you've got cars like the Cayman that I think are perfectly adapted and suited for it. Obviously, the 911 becomes the proper GT machine, and GTE, GT3, and so on for Porsche. Whereas then you've got other brands that sort of detune their GT3 machines so that they have a customer racing car. And you've got other cars like the KTM, which don't even exist really in any other racing. It's kind of a mix and a mash, and I think the Cayman's one of the better ones because it's properly suited and you get to drive the proper car. I would rather drive a car to the edge of its abilities rather than drive something that's detuned and watered down and maybe kind of feels limiting in that sense. So yeah, the Cayman's a great GT4 car, no doubt about it.
Yep, so basically designed for this sort of racing in this class as well. There's Will Ford from Boosted Media out there getting his last qualifying lap done, I believe. In fact, he's actually out of qualifying laps. He's on his 4th lap of an allotted 3, so even if he does set a valid time at the end of this one, it won't count as far as the grid is concerned. So maybe getting a little bit of last-minute practice out there. Of course, they had about a 2-hour practice session before this qualifying even started, and of course there were practice sessions put up during the week as well, not just by us, but by Will himself as well. He seemed really enthusiastic about getting everyone up to speed, it seems.
Yeah, awesome to see. I need to join in a couple of these practices maybe next week and see how it goes, but definitely nice to see some consistency at the top. Matty Campbell right now, just to give you a note, is I think, what is it, 1 point? Okay, so he's 1/10 back of pole right now exactly, but 0.02 behind Dan Suzuki. So it's going to be tight at the front again. This is exactly what we want to see from these cars. We said that they've been getting closer and closer, and for whatever reason, maybe it's like you say, you can't overdrive them. They're a little more forgiving. The group is a lot tighter right now that we're in the Cayman.
It is. We have about 2 minutes left to go in the qualifying session. I think most, if not everyone, is done with their qualifying. That's just, because of the short lap times here, as Dan will dive down on towards pit lane. But yeah, the lap times are only, 127 into the 128 as well. Some at the back of the grid into the 129. Still a very, very short lap time indeed. And you need to remind everyone at the start of the show that this is the shortest track in terms of lap time that we'll go to. Of course, the longest track being Nürburgring coming up in a little while.
Yeah, and then obviously followed by Le Mans, which is another quite long circuit as well. I'm curious about the lap times, though, about where we'll actually end up with the Cup car today, because Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve next week as well, even though it's a little bit longer, it's a fast circuit. You've got some long straights, so it's going to be close on lap time, I think, between the two. But you're absolutely right. This is the shortest, and perhaps even short tracks are interesting because sometimes you get, although Nürburgring's kind of an exception, you get less rest during the lap, if that makes sense. Straightaways are often looked at as overtaking opportunities, but really they're a break. In real life, you're tightening your belts, you're making sure you're comfortable, you're checking your delta, checking your mirrors, giving things a once over. Whereas Road Atlanta, yes, you've got one long straightaway, but the rest of the lap is very busy. You're very, very on it, and you have to be very accurate through those S's, through turn the first sector, even 2 sectors of the circuit, because it all links together. And you get offline, and turn 3, you're going to be offline potentially all the way until turn 5, which is a big section of track.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have confirmation that everyone has done their lap times with still 30 seconds left remaining in the session. So we'll have to wait for that one to switch over before we can actually bring up the starting grid graphic. But this should be an absolutely fantastic race indeed. Expanding on the points that this was the shortest lap time on the schedule. Of course, it's not going to matter too much here in this one because we don't have as many drivers as we do in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. But once that rolls around, Matt, then traffic might be an issue at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that we'll see. It's crazy because 40 cars, you think, okay, the leaders are going to catch the back guys at some point. And I won't say they won't, but it's not going to happen on pace. That's how close those 40 cars are. It's going to happen based on incidents. It's going to happen based on people kind of bottlenecking and getting into battles, if it happens at all. It seems like such a short track, 40 cars. It's going to be insane. But yeah, that's how tight that class is. And it's possible that we don't see anyone get lapped unless there's some sort of mitigating circumstances, shall we say.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see, but we are starting to grid up now for the first race here. This evening, we have Emily Jones on pole position with Dan Suzuki in second place. Those are your 2 championship leaders that will go head-to-head right at the very front of the field. Matt Malone with his first appearance in this series. He lines up in P7. Depiello right next to him on row number 4. Will Ford from Booster Media, row 5. Same with Rye. And then you got the likes of Maxime and Gamer Muscle on the final row of the starting grid here today. Everyone getting themselves ready and waiting. We're just waiting for one car, I believe, to take themselves to the starting grid. That will be Matt Campbell, who starting in P3. There he is. He appears on the starting grid. That means we are all ready to go for round number 5 of the Porsche All-Stars event here, presented by Tag Heuer. We get the green flag here at Road Atlanta to start the first race of the 2 that we'll get here this evening in the All-Star Series. Everyone seems to have gotten away well. A bit of a gaggle in the mid-pack trying to scrap for positions here. Depielio's involved in all of this right now, and there's more scrapping at the very front of the field as well. Matt Campbell improving up into second place from his 3rd spot on the grid, able to get past Dan Suzuki and perhaps squeeze him out a little bit by the time turn 4 arrives. But everyone else seems like it's a pretty clean start up and down the field. I've seen no one have absolutely major problems. as they all get single file through the S's for the first time. Someone's out into the gravel. Matt Campbell. Oh, such a good start, but not a very good turn 5 as he has to cycle all the way to the back.
Yeah, and look at the scrapes down the side of that beautiful Bose livery. So not in the traditional Porsche livery we saw in the Cup car. This time he's rocking the sponsorship. But yeah, definitely got wide. That's a spot where you can carry so much speed, and you're going to see people flirt with that, getting up over top of the crest of 5 at the apex, carrying that super wide exit curve, because a lot of people don't know this. It's actually, there's a smaller circuit, which is almost like a mini oval of 6, 7, 8, and then they loop back in and join again at turn 5. So that curve's twice as wide, because that's where the asphalt essentially is on the exit, is the entry for the other track. So a lot of people like to get wide there and use as much of it as they can. A little bit too much for Matty, I think, and it doesn't have a ton of grip. So if you're not really pointed when you get onto it, easy to lose the rear. But yeah, he's going to fall down the order as a result. Meanwhile, at the front, Yardier leads the way. He's the mint car that leads, but this time I need to point out as well, we're missing Minty Boy. Jimmy Broadbent and Cyanide actually both feeling a little bit under the weather. So hopefully they're able to recover and get back into the series very quickly. See how everyone gets on without them in the field, but so far so good as Emery's running at the front.
Yeah, we can't see her on the timing screens right now. We're just waiting for that one. Yeah, we're waiting for that to reset, so hopefully that gets fixed shortly. But yeah, it is Emery leading by coming up to 2 seconds at this point. So all the chaos behind her with people going offline and Matt Campbell hitting the wall has really gifted her a lot of time. And now it's just this battle for second place that we're seeing right now, as you see the very pale green car of Emery start to run away at the very front of the field. So almost a bit of a side-by-side moment further back between Gabby and Matt Malone. So Matt trying to make an impact in this series. There's the view looking back from Emery's car. She seems pretty happy with the way things are going at the moment, and I think anyone would be in this situation.
Is she reading chat or checking the delta? I would say she's reading chat. She's so relaxed. She's talking. She's letting everyone know she's having a good time. Yeah, not even any pressure right now. She's just coasting up there. But that's the nature of getting a good qualifying, getting a good start. A lot of times, I mean, we saw it with Sebastian Job in the main series at Barcelona when he had pole in the feature race. You get that clean start, everyone behind's kind of battling and arguing for position, and you get that luxury of a comfy cushion to at least get off the line with. We'll see if they can catch up to her behind, as Yardier's still just ahead of Dan Suzuki, and they're not getting too into it with each other yet, so chance they'll try and close the gap before they battle. That would be smart. If I was in their position, that's what I would want to do. Think back to karting. You used to tap yourself in the back of the helmet like, hey, give me a push. Let's go catch the guy first, and then we'll battle. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things. You don't want to get into it too soon, or she just runs away and you don't get a chance for a victory at all.
Yeah, we are working on getting the timing fixed, but as of right now, we'll just do it radio style and run through all the positions. So Emery in the lead with Jardier in second place, Dan Suzuki in third, which is the driver that you are riding on board with right now. Heike in P4, and you got Gabby P5, Matt Malone 6th, Rye 7th, Matt Campbell trying to work up from a bad start in P8 at the moment, Stapilio P9, Boosted Media P10, Gamer Muscle 11th, and Maxime in 12th. So that's the rundown of the order.
I love this shirt. Sorry to jump in. We said Jimmy's not here, but obviously Jardier's giving a little bit of support to Jimmy. Please no punterino. I guess he doesn't have to be worried about being punted by Jimmy if he's not here, but cool to see the cross promotion between the drivers. I need to get me one of those shirts, I think. Please no punterino. I've always enjoyed those.
Yeah, you gotta support Jimmy and buy all the merch, shall we say. But this close little moment here between Jardier and Dan Suzuki continues. Of course, Jardier was able to make up that position a little bit earlier on. He's up 2 on the day, thanks to the little moments that Matt Campbell had as well. He was able to pick up a position off of him and able to get ahead of Dan Suzuki as well. What's going on in the background there? Gabby going way to the inside to try and defend from Matt Malone, who tries to find some form of progress the long way around, but can't get anything done. Searching for a line up into turn 2 and 3 now. So Matt is being pretty fair at the moment, but the longer this race goes on, the more aggressive he's going to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question about it. Getting all over the back of Quick Gabby as we see her on the top left. She's been doing a lot of different promotional driving over the last 2 weeks. If you follow her on Instagram, she's been, I think, at Algarve last week, and then before that she was, I want to say, Imola. So she's been doing a bunch of different driving in different and various cars similar to this, GT4 machinery. So very cool to see that. And obviously Matt, as he's joined into the series, is going to get a nice run out of turn 7. This is exactly what we talked about. Now, these cars don't draft as well as the Cup car. If this was the Cup car, he'd be getting that vacuum right onto the back bumper. So he's maybe not quite close enough, but we'll see if he goes for a move in the big braking point, the hardest braking point at turn A. or 10A, excuse me.
Yeah, the old American corner naming systems where they count little kinks in the straight as turns, and then they count different turns in the chicane as the same turn. It's kind of weird to me, but we'll just have to ignore that for now as this battle continues its way around. Under the bridge they come, and then you get that downhill section in towards the final corner. The car goes through a bit of a compression through there, and it's very, very tricky indeed to get the line right because you deviate slightly, you're going to be out into the grass through that final corner, and that's not anyone's idea of a good time. Maybe unless you're a rallycross driver, but these cars very much not rallycross cars. They don't handle too well out there on the grass, but these drivers keeping it all together for now, and Gabby and Matt Malone continuing to basically occupy the same piece of real estate out there on circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit further back, we saw some battling. I think I saw, if I'm not mistaken, Boosted Media and Rye going side by side into 10A last lap around, but it seems like the order hasn't changed too much. Oh, maybe a slowdown penalty, I think, further back right now for, I think, Depiello, because he's just pulled off. Is it Heike? I'm not sure, but Matty Campbell has gone through, so Matt Campbell gets a move forward. Boosted Media is also trying to get a bunch inside of this battle, but Matt's still trying to recover, and it looks like there's a bunch of paint damage and surface damage. I don't know if there's going to be too much because he kind of scuffed the wall in terms of actual drivability in that car that was lost.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a look at Matt Campbell's car right now. Yeah, it's just scraped down the right-hand side of that lovely black Bose Porsche. Again, thank you to Bose for supporting both this All-Star Series and, of course, the Porsche tag Heuer Esports Supercup proper. Fantastic support from those guys. There's a look back to the battle between Gabby and Matt Malone, just to give everyone a reminder of what the situation is. We're trying to get our timing fixed. Currently, there's about 9 minutes and a half left to go in this race, and there we go. We got the timing up at least, but it's Emery that still leads in P1. We've got Jardier P2, Dan Suzuki P3, Heike P4, Gabby P5, Matt Malone P6, and that's where this battle resides. So that's the top half of the field. There we go. We got timing fixed, Matt.
There we go. That makes life so much easier for everyone at home. What I can tell you is that my timing screen did show that Heike just did the fastest lap of the race by about a tenth of a second over what was Emery previously had it at 27.3. Now it's 27.272. So good, decent time for Heike, sitting in fourth place currently, with Yardi and Dan Suzuki not far in front. Definitely could close up on that battle. Gap hasn't come down too much, so Emily Jones is doing exactly what she needs to do with 8 minutes and 30 seconds left in the race. Still a lot of time to go, but yeah, really, I think pretty smooth sailing so far, considering we're at Road Atlanta. Didn't know if we'd see a bit more, I guess, bold moves. Like we say, it's not the most welcoming for overtaking, but there's certainly a lot of places you definitely think you can, and a lot of people misjudge it.
Yeah, a lot of people really do. Meanwhile, further back in the shot, Will's looking for a move here down into the chicane. That's on Rye, further back in the shot there, but Rye's able to hold on to that 9th spot. Meanwhile, Matt Malone and Gabby going wheel to wheel, and I think Gabby is just about being able to get through. There's the battle for second, though. Between Jardier, Dan Suzuki, Heike. Like you said, he's been making some good progress over the last couple of laps, really putting in the hard yards, and now potentially he might be looking for a podium by the time this race is done.
Absolutely, yeah, he's going to be knocking on the back of this battle in no time at all, and in fact, Dan Suzuki, I think, is struggling just to hang with Yardier, so I thought maybe he was biding time. Certainly doesn't look that way, and if he was, he might have misjudged it, because his mirrors are going to be more full than his windscreen pretty soon, as Heike continues to close up. Matt Malone behind, by the way, has got around quick Gabby, so he might be one to watch as well for pace. If he can close up as this race gets further and further in. We didn't talk too much about air temperature. It's quite warm. Air temperature is 21, but the track temp's 48.3. So thankfully, the Cayman's not as hard on tires as the Cup car is, but it's definitely something to keep in mind throughout the day as we will see the PESC guys come up a little bit later. That'll be definitely a bigger factor, more so with setup. These guys are on a fixed setup, which is it was great. I love fixed setup racing. Let's go. It's more like a, well, I mean, it's a proper spec series, but more like a karting race almost, where there's so little you can change, and it's all driver inputs.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the fixed setup as well. It's just more of an equalizer. Of course, you got some drivers where their driving style is perhaps more suited to the fixed setup than some others, but really does kind of equalize things across the board. I know the Porsche Great Britain series that use the 911 GT3 Cup cars as well, which are the same cars the Porsche tag Heuer Esports Supercup guys use, but in the Porsche GP series, though, they all use fixed setup rather than open setup, and things are pretty close in that series, and it's a joy to watch every single time. And having a look at this race night now, 6 minutes to go. Still a lot of battle packs going on. Depp Yellow, Rye, Will Ford involved in this battle deeper in the pack as well. And I got to remind everyone, we are currently streaming in 4K on YouTube. So either YouTube streams that we've got going, either on the iRacing channel or on the Porsche channel, they are going to be in 4K. So that's a new thing that we're doing for this series, and hopefully this goes well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's amazing that we're having that much quality now available to streams in general. I remember when 1080 was a thing, like, what was it, 4 years ago? If you upload a video on YouTube, you're probably still sitting at like 480p. Probably more than 4 years ago now, to be fair. But yeah, it's ridiculous, the advancement in streaming services worldwide in 4K. It's kind of crazy to think that that's just immediately available at our fingertips. That used to be Hollywood only. But right now, looking to be Mr. Hollywood. Rye still on the move at the back. We've got Will Ford on the back of this battle, as well as we've got Capello, excuse me, I'm going to get it right, just like you, Connery. Deppy Yellow just in front, and he's holding his own at this point, not really getting much of a gap away. But I just want to point out as well, the fastest lap of the race for Dan Suzuki last time by, a little bit quicker than Heike behind. So maybe he was trying to hold on, because now he's back on Yardier and getting closer to the end of the race. We've lost another 4 minutes since the last time I updated you on the clock, and he might want to make a move for P2.
Yeah, Emery's just kind of running away from the race lead right now, so I think this is going to be the main battle that we'll get in the final couple of laps of this race. 4.5 minutes left remaining, but of course it is a very, very short lap time here. Timing 71, our timing provider, is currently predicting about 7 laps to go here. So, decent amount of time in terms of laps, but they come by fast and furiously here, so it's going to be, well, you don't want to be hanging around if you're involved in one of these fights, that's for sure. And if you're Heike on the back of this battle, you'll want to stick your nose in at every single opportunity at this point to try and get both of them done swiftly.
I think 7 laps is a bit optimistic on that, because they're doing about a minute and 27 a lap, so that it should be quite a bit. Oh, nice move. Dan's going to go for it on the brakes. This is 10A. Now this switches back the other direction, so it should still hold in the favor of Yardier. Can he get an undercut and a move down the hill to set himself up for turn 1? But look who's on the heels of all this, because Heike's in the prime position, Connery.
Yep, he really is. This might be the opportunity. He gets a good run through the final corner, looks to the inside for turn 1, but that's a very, very risky opportunity. It's not impossible to make a pass into turn 1. It just requires the right set of circumstances, with the car ahead of you being slow out of the final corner with a bit of a compromised line. They all stack up then, coming up through turn 3 and into the S's section for one of the final times here. Of course, it's going to be way less than 7 laps to go at this rate, and with just a handful of minutes left, maybe 2, maybe even 3 laps to go at this point. So Dan Suzuki knows time is of the essence if he wants to get further up the podium and reduce the points deficit that he has right now to Emery.
Get on board with Heike, shows us all the perspectives in the battle. Sits very close to the wheel, quite high up on it, and look how focused he is. He is dead on. He knows he has a chance in this. Still talking his way through it and making sure he's well adapted to what's going on. But yeah, definitely, you can see it in the eyes. He is dead serious and dead set down the straightaway. Again, not as much drafting as the Cup car. If this was the Porsche Cups, they would be almost 3 wide, I would say, going into the corner with the vacuum that it creates. But not as much of a hole punched in the air with these cars, so no lunges or deep dives under braking. Heike gets so close to the back, but even closer. Look at what Dan Suzuki closes up, and Yardier's just got to hold his own. He knows he doesn't have to do a whole lot to defend in that position if they're not going to be able to get up close to him out of turn 7. It's more about holding composure down the hill into turn 12, but more so in turn 1, where the next chance to really get alongside is.
Is the onboard with Gabby, who's currently trying to fend off Matt Campbell, actually. So she's more looking behind her than ahead of her at Matt Malone at the moment. Unless she's able to put in a good couple of laps here towards the end to try and retake the 5th place that she lost just a couple of laps ago. And wheel that car once again through turn 3. You really want to attack that curb on the inside there, the right-hand side, to be able to get the best line in towards then turn 4 and have a good sort of smooth motion coming through the S's section. Back to the battle for P2 though. Emery has a 4-second advantage at the front of this one, so I think she's pretty secure as long as she can keep on the grey stuff to take the race 1 win here today, but it's all up for grabs for those final 2 podium positions. It could really finish in any order between these 3.
Yeah, this is absolutely the case. And you can see what happens. They start to get into a little bit more battling. Emery just continues to open up that gap. 4 seconds for her, so I think she's in a great position. Matt Malone not quite close enough, I think, to attack as we'll head on to the last lap this time by. And we'll see if anything can be done. Bit more defensive on the run down the hill, but still nice and wide for the entry to turn A. Less than a car length between Yardier and Dan Suzuki, but for me, it's got to be down this hill. If you can get a clean run, maybe. 12's tough because you can easily get too wide and drop a wheel onto the grass on exit. Everyone pretty clean that time through, but if you can get enough pressure on them, maybe Yardier gets a little wide and then turn 1 becomes more of a possibility, but it's going to be one of those inertia effects. You've got to keep knocking onto the battle and getting him off his line more and more and more, and then later in the lap you can make the move. So it's really going to take a lot of setup to make this work.
I get the feeling Yardier's enjoying this. There's maybe a slight smile as he works his way through the first sector here at Road Atlanta. We are on the final lap here, just 15 seconds left remaining on the clock. Of course, as is the rules here in both the All-Star Series and the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, once that clock hits 0, that is confirmed the final lap, and we're just a couple of seconds away now. So who's going to get the good run out of turn 7 to be able to make the pass happen into the chicane? They all get so close. They want to be as close as possible, of course, to be able to make that lunge into the final chicane for the final time in this event. 5 seconds up the road, though, is Emily Jones, who's had an exemplary race here in race 1 to be able to run away at the front of the field and to basically certainly take this race win at this point. She heads her way through the final chicane and under the bridge for the final time to win race 1 here at Road Atlanta in the Porsche Heuer All-Stars event. Emery takes another race win, but who's going to come home P2, 3, 4? Jardier just holds on to that second place. Dan Suzuki in P3 and Heike in P4, so it didn't change at the end there between that group of cars. There was an attempt, though, by Dan down the inside of the chicane, but it was not successful. Checkered flag out. Everyone else heading their way across the line now. Boosted Meter wasn't able to do anything about Rye in that battle further in the order, but yeah, I think that was quite a comfortable race for all involved, except for maybe Matt Campbell.
Maybe not. At the end, you say comfortable, that doesn't look overly comfortable across the line at the backside. Ouch. That was, I think, Maxime and Gamer Muscle as they got to the finish. That didn't look fun, but they got across the line sliding, if that counts.
Yeah, thanks for ruining my comment right at the very end there with the crash across the line.
You jinxed yourself.
I did. I really, really did. And as a commentator, I do that more than I admit. But here's the results then. The unofficial results from Heat 1. Emily Jones wins by 5.2 seconds over Jardier. You've got Dan Suzuki in 3rd place, Heike in 4th, Matt Malone 5th, Matt Campbell wasn't really able to cover all that much up into P6, but he, of course, did start in P3. Quick Gabby P7, and you see those drivers further down the order. You see the battle for the last place that had a bit of an altercation coming across the line there between Gamer Muscle and Maxime. We'll get a replay of that in just a couple of moments' time, but I would say that was actually a pretty calm race 1, at least compared to what we've been expecting throughout this series.
Yeah, fairly calm, and I think part of that is actually the lap times were extremely close. We're going to take a look back with the Vodafone replay of exactly what happened at the end. So it is Maxime and Gamer Muscle that are going to the finish at this point. Gamer Muscle got a great run out of 10B, so actually alongside, and then cars get a little light over the hill. A bit of an overlap they weren't expecting, and yeah, absolutely kept the foot in it. And that's going to just unfortunately put Gamer Muscle into the wall. So yeah, maybe leave a little more space, but they both crossed the line. We'll just pretend everything's fine, and look at that, the cars are fixed for the next race. Perfect. But no, I think to your point that the lap times are very close. Everyone with the exception of 2 cars did a 127 point something in that race. So that's quite close for what we've seen in the All-Stars. And it actually, to highlight that, I mean, look at a guy like Matty Campbell, who's been the pace setter, as we mentioned previously when he's been with us, and on the pole position for the 2 races prior to this. He had a mistake, got further in the field, and he couldn't actually make up that space like he could previously. So definitely a tighter field this time around.
Yeah, I would definitely say so as well. Everyone is just such a similar pace to each other, and so sometimes that comes with its own struggles as well, because even though you're there or thereabouts, you don't quite have the time delta compared to the cars ahead of you or the drivers ahead of you to be able to make those passes done in any sort of comfortable fashion. And I think that's what Matt Campbell in particular struggled with here in race 1. You know, after he made that mistake on the first lap going wide through turn 5, he wasn't quite able to get past those drivers in the mid-pack as he would do perhaps in previous events if he was, like he was coming through on a charge through on a reverse grid, for example. He wasn't quite able to get those passes done, and like you said, it's because everyone was just so close in lap times that they were able to fend him off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough to make ground right now with how close it is, which is great. We didn't quite see some of the battles we would have. The reverse grid will be interesting because there's enough pace in it that people that maybe didn't have the fortunate result, Matt, for example, or even people further back, Gamer Muscle, Maxime, who weren't quite in that battle pack, maybe they're able to keep it together, less mistakes. We talked about that. You got an opportunity, and now coming through the order is going to be difficult. So it might be actually a very good reverse grid race rather than sort of the survival of the fittest as we normally see it.
Yeah, I think so too. Remember, this track is pretty tricky as well. And in some little situations sometimes you can get into at this circuit, especially because of the bumps, for example, coming through the final corner in particular, can really upset the car. If you hit a bump in the wrong way, then it's just going to send your car out into the grass. But I didn't see much of that here today. And of course, the other trouble spot is the exit of turn 5 with some of the bumps there. But again, that's one thing that's always there in the background waiting to strike. If some drivers just get the line slightly wrong, all of a sudden they are in a horrible situation on the outside of one of these corners, and that could spell the end of their race. And someone like Emery has to be really conscious of that. You know, even though she ran away at the very front of the field, one small error and it could have been over.
Well, that's one of the things with learning the Cayman as well, especially on a fixed setup. You're not going to be able to change anything to accommodate things like bigger curbs or bumps, as you say, which definitely Road Atlanta has. So you kind of have to change the driving style, change your line, adapt, find ways to let the car be more neutral, if you will. You know, less inputs, nice and smooth. And I think that's what the Cayman really is where it shines, is when you can maximize that sort of driving style. And you're absolutely right as well. One of the other places that I find very tricky, you know, you said turn 2 in the lap preview we saw isn't much of a turn, but it is a setup breaking point for turn 3, and making sure you've got a nice line through 1 where you're not chasing the car up the hill, you're set up, you're straight, you get your braking done, and then you snap it in for 3. That's going to set you all the way up for down the hill to run in 4 into the S's, and then if you get the S's right, you're set up perfectly alongside the curb parallel, snap it into 5, you got a good line. If you mess up the braking, even a little bit of trail braking in turn 2, suddenly you're off in 3. Now you're in too early because you've exited wide off of 2. You're too early for 3, and then 4 becomes a problem. You're chasing it through the end. That, like I said, that whole section falls apart. So you're right. You do have to figure out where the bumps are and where the car is going to stay balanced in that first sector, especially.
Basically, to be fast at this circuit, you need to get into a rhythm and into a groove. But we have our grid set then for race number 2. It's a full reverse grid based on the results of race 1. So Maxime will take pole position here for race 2 with Gamer Muscle on that front row as well. Boosted Media and Rye will be P3, P4, Depp Yellow, P5, Quick Gabby in P6, Matt Campbell, P7, Matt Malone, P8. Heike P9, Dan Suzuki P10, Jardier in 11th, and Emery will start at the very back of the starting grid for this one. So drivers already taking themselves to those grid spots. We are just about ready to get the second race underway in the Porsche Tag Heuer All-Star Series round number 5 here at Road Atlanta. A long hold before the green flag comes out here in Brazelton, Georgia, and they are away, getting themselves down towards turn number 1 for the first time. Maxime was able to get away well at the front of the field. Battles on for P2 as well. Here comes Gamer Muscle trying to go the long way around at turn 1 to try and get the race of the way. There's contact further back in the pack. Depp Yellow has gotten tagged around by someone there. I think he was able to still hold it together, but loses a good couple of spots. And actually, I think the track ain't out on the rear end of that car. It doesn't look too healthy at all. There's more problems. Gamer Muscle into the grass and into the wall.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to see a replay. You're absolutely right. Depp Yellow got helped around there because there's no way a car snaps that fast. It is a mid-engined Porsche, but that myth is overdone. So I think he was helped for sure. We didn't see what happened with Gamer Muscle, but this lets Maxime get a bit of a break at the front. Exactly what we talked about. Just stay smooth, no mistakes, get your eyes forward, get the run before everyone else sorts themselves. Matt Campbell sits in third right now, and just in front of him is Boosted Media. Again, not a lot of drafting down this straightaway, but when you're this close, absolutely look for an overlap and look for some moves deep. Already defending to the inside is Gabby. That might actually work though, because if you can hold the outside of 10A, 10B becomes your corner.
Oh, we might see 3 wide coming down into the chicane. They'll go 2 by 2 instead, so not risking the 3 wide for now. Emery's looking to make her way through on this one quite quickly because, of course, she needs to secure her position at the top of the championship, and every single point matters here as she just about gets to the outside of Heike, coming through the final corner, steaming around the outside. That's a brilliant pass there from Emery. Oh, hold it together, and she has. Here comes Jardier with a run of speed then in towards turn 1. Fantastic action here in the mid-pack and back as Heike and Jardier will take this door-to-door, coming up in towards turn 2, turn 3 as well. We'll get a replay of what happened here on the first lap. Take note of Depiello. He's on the inside of turn 1 there in that blue and orange car. Oh, he just goes too hot into turn 1.
Yeah, no, I think he actually got into the back of Rye. I actually thought he was tapped around. It would have been quick Gabby that I would have put the blame on, but looking at it again, no, he got into the back on his own. Bit of an overlap. Boosted Media didn't quite catch the fact that, to be fair, pretty aggressively alongside was Gamer Muscle, so that is another contact incident, which we undoubtedly expected. But yeah, I think he actually got into the back of Rye, did Depiello, so maybe his own doing. Absolutely, a little hot tap, and then the rear end just pivoted on him.
Here we go then. There's basically everyone in the leading train at the moment, apart from those cars that had problems. Boosted Media, Will Ford looking to the inside and to the chicane. Maxime will try and block the lane, but Boosted Media's been able to get to the inside of the Apex. They door each other through the corner. Oh, they collect Dan Suzuki behind, and Matt Campbell goes from P3 into P1 because Maxime isn't able to hold on to position. I think she has a bit of damage as well. That car doesn't look too healthy. Let Rye and Gabby through as well. A lot of incidents early on in race 2.
Tons, and Emery looking to make more positions from this. Boosted Media lost in that battle, falls way down to the back of the order, down to 11th place, but Emery's looking smart about this. We saw her in the previous lap getting really wide on turn 12, taking to the grass down the front straight, but you saw her before that. She tapped the brake mid-corner. She knew she was going to end up wide based on carrying that much speed and trying to hold the outside. She planned for it, and that's smart driving. So she kept her hands straight, got back on the surface, and now she's just holding her own at this point. And smooth is fast, and she's doing that. I know smooth is fast to a point. We won't get into that debate, but it certainly isn't iRacing and into Caymans. So she's doing exactly what she has to do, and you can see exactly how it works. We see this week in, week out. The people who are able to just keep themselves clean and consistent in these situations will benefit on the reverse grid.
Yeah, oh, look at this. Emery right onto the rear bumper of Gabby. And she'll size her up for the pass coming into the chicane, I suspect. Try and get alongside before they reach the right-hand kink, before they go down the hill here. It's still going to be the outside for the first apex here for Emery. She's actually getting a little bit of draft help from Rye as well. Late on the brakes. And Gabby's still trying to fight that on the inside, but I think it's a losing battle at the moment. She'll have to look for the cutback off the corner, but hasn't quite gained the momentum required to be able to get back alongside Emery. So great little pass there for Emery. She's up into the podium positions already. Remember, she started at the very back of the grid, so started P12 up into third. So that's a great improvement.
Yeah, massively. Massively so. Meanwhile, Matty Campbell does lead the way, and he's just done the fastest lap of the race so far. Pretty early going still, 17 minutes left to run. But he's done a 1:27.0, so it's actually the fastest race lap we've seen on the day. Perhaps maybe there was a bit more damage to that car in the first race, or just the clean track is benefiting him, either or. We'll see if anyone can catch up to him, if Emery can get through. But Gabby trying to hold on to the back of that pack, as now in Emery's sights is Rye, who's done very well to hold on to second place and sit there despite some early contact. Remember, he got his rear bumper knocked on by Depiello, and obviously he's been in the wars, so very good job to stay where he is. But Emery's got a great run. Look at that. That's now you said there's not a lot of draft. Now you're close enough that there is for the 718. You're all over the bumper on the straight. This should be a move into 10A.
Yeah, Emery knows that time is of the essence here. She can't allow Matt Campbell to get away at the very front of the field, so she wants to get this pass done on Rye very quickly. She'd prefer he not fight it coming down into the chicane, but Rye has nothing to lose and will continue to try and go side by side. But Emery just completely demolishes him there coming through the chicane. Absolutely impressive driving for Emily Jones. So from the very back of the grid up into second now, and she has her sights set ahead to try and chase down the Porsche works driver of Matt Campbell. And I think Rye might be a little frustrated about something there. He just kind of waved his hands a little bit.
Yeah, not sure what he was gesticulating at that point in time, but interesting to see Emery really on the charge, because a lot of curve at 12, that gets the back end out. Scary spot to do it. You're carrying a lot of speed. That wall comes at you fast if you get out on the grass sideways. So we mentioned she was out there already once, but that time could have been a little more catastrophic either way. She's got a hold of this thing. She's all over it now, and she's put quite a gap onto Rye already, who now has put Gabby closing up on the back of him. So yeah, good battles throughout. We've got Depiello trying to make his way back into it. He's actually closed the gap. He's on the back of Maxime right now, who's still trying to hold her position. As you said, that car looked a little damaged and out of sorts early in the race, so hopefully she's not too out of it, because right now she still has position to fight for.
Yeah, you got to be careful here. You know, any bits of wheel or suspension damage is going to knock the tracking out a little bit, and it's just not ideal at all. And of course, maybe a little bit of aero damage at this track doesn't help either, but these cars aren't the most aerodynamic cars, shall we say. But we'll just continue on with this one. There's Jardier just trying to block onto the back of this battle and see if he can get a couple more positions here. Of course, he had a good run in race number 1 and has continued to side his way through the field. Perhaps not as efficiently as Emery and Matt Campbell, but still doing a good job. Started 11th, up into P5, and maybe a podium for the taking as well. Still plenty of time left in this race.
Tons indeed. As we look at Jardier, like it might be the camera angle that's being slightly misleading, but he's got a little bit of a slouch, a little bit of a lean, like he's out for a Sunday drive. I kind of like it. Looking pretty casual behind the wheel, but working pretty hard. Matty Campbell, meanwhile, has gone faster still. I was going to say he's the only driver to break into the 26s with a 26.9, but Emily Jones has just done a 26.8. So this battle certainly could be on. Whether or not the gap is insurmountable is yet to be determined. 2.6 seconds. Certainly a battle going on behind. Rye continues to try and hold on to third place, the final spot on the podium. And Quick Gabby was the one going for it, but Jardier is all over that as well, as he wants in on this battle for the position. And certainly, as we say, bragging rights of being on the podium.
Yeah, let's have a replay involving Will Ford from Boosted Media. Oh, this was a good couple of laps ago where Maxime tried to block all the way to the inside. Will Ford was able to get a nose in there. There's the contact through the middle of the corner, and then Dan Suzuki, there's nowhere he could go there. Will was just having a bit of a spin in front of him, and he had so little time to react. Just unfortunate there for Dan. You know, it's one of those things where you just cannot react as a human fast enough to that.
Yeah, and I feel bad there for Will Ford, because I think actually Maxime turned in on him there, and you know, he was definitely far enough alongside. Sure, she's also battling and deep on the brakes too, but gotta leave a little bit of space. And then obviously that caused him to unsettle the rear. He loses it, tries to save it, and gets collected. And you're right, absolutely nowhere to go for Dan Suzuki in that situation. So yeah, just really unfortunate for Boosted Media, and he comes out the victim for ultimately something that was not his fault.
So here's a look back at Matt Malone, who's in 7th place. He's trying to chase down Heike in that little battle pair, shall we say, as they head their way through turn 5. Matt has had he's had a decent time here in his first event. Of course, you know, we can't criticize him too much. It is his first event, you know, with these guys in this series. And of course, you know, it takes some time sometimes to get used to the car as well. But he's had a positive event here. Hasn't gotten involved in too many shenanigans. And right now, he seems quite happy and laughing. Perhaps he's reacting to maybe some of the things in his chat right now. Of course, basically I would say in terms of viewership, he is the most popular iRacing streamer that's on Twitch. Of course, Jimmy kind of bests him on the YouTube side of things. And now here comes Jardier around the outside of Gabby, you know, further forward in that shot. And continuing on that fight for P4 at the moment. But yeah, these guys, you know, have all done so well to establish their audiences here in sim racing, and it really does help that they're able to promote the esports side as well. Yeah, well, and to that point, and not to get too far away from the racing action because it's been great so far, but you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of these guys did this out of passion. There's a lot of sim racers. I mean, there's groups on Facebook that I'm in that have millions of users that are active and chatting, and there's obviously tons of different media now about it. But
it was a slow burn, and much like, things like Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Dota, StarCraft, when it blew up, there was a lot of people, the core group, that did it out of strictly passion at the start, and then it took off. And I think certainly the pandemic, as hard as it's been for everyone, and still is being very difficult, no doubt it's affected every single human being in the world, it has shed some light on sim racing that I think was overdue, and certainly not to say that that's the only reason, because it's been growing organically for quite some time. But obviously last year we had a lot of the real drivers come over and partake, and that brought a lot of the audiences, because real racing couldn't exist. And guys like these absolutely deserve that credit. Sometimes we don't look at them as the fastest anymore. We've got the Pro Series, or, we've got the pro drivers coming over. But these guys have been here from the start, and you're right. They've put in a lot of effort to build the audience and build up what is essentially the sim racing community and industry. So it's very cool to have so many of them here, but even cooler to support their communities, which is even cooler because this championship does exactly that. The championship winnings go toward the respective winners' communities. So super cool.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And, we like to talk about the rise of, the popularity of sim racing, at least in recent years, especially with what happened in 2020. But it's been around for a very, very long time. I mean, in the early 2000s, you still had competitive sim racing events. You even had them on lands as well. There's a lot of veterans in this community that remember those times. I joined a little bit later than that, but I know there's a lot of history behind the scenes here in sim racing, even in the late 90s as well with some titles. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why, I compared to some of the esports titles that are now in massive stadiums, they started the same way, and it's definitely been coming. It was inevitable. But yeah, we've got a battle now going on at the front. Emery chasing down Matt Jones, brought the gap back down, I think, almost a full second over the last 2 laps. So definitely on the move and on the hunt. 27-3 last time by for Matt Campbell, 27-2 for Emery. So it's going to be tight. 9 minutes to go. That puts us at about, quick maths here, 6 to 7 laps. So not a whole lot of time to do it, but if she continues on at this pace, or if Maddie makes a mistake at all, she'll be all over it.
Yeah, it's brilliant lap times being set now by Emery. She's kind of lopping off a couple of tenths of a second a lap, and making some very, very good progress. The gap is going to dip maybe below 2 seconds on this next lap here, so continuing to make good progress. And the closer she gets, of course, the more she'll feel that slight bit of draft, so they'll just help the lap times, and then Matt Campbell has to be maybe worrying a little bit about that relative time back to Emery getting a little bit smaller each and every time. But he has to hope that he can delay the charge just enough that the checkered flag will come out just as Emily Jones is getting into the position to make the pass. He can't afford to have it happen any sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. So tons of that curve we talked about, and then the entry road from the smaller circuit at Road Atlanta. And that's what you're going to see all day. Everyone trying to use that curve in the PESC series as well. As we look a little bit further back, this battle is still not done for third. In fact, it's grown. We've got 5 cars battling for position now, as Bry has managed to still hold on. We saw him get by quick Gabby, but now Heike's on the back of it, and Matt Malone, I think, is just on the back of him. There it is. Perfect shot. 5 cars down the straightaway. Far from done, this battle.
Yeah, far from complete. It seems like in both races we've just had battles for the final podium positions, but of course at the bottom of the screen you can see the progress that Emily Jones is making over Matt Campbell. Gap back just above 2 seconds, so maybe not as good on this lap as she was able to on the previous couple. So maybe a response there from Matt Campbell to be able to keep the gap where it is, but still yet, well, some more action to be found in that battle for third place. Rye has been able to hold on quite well in this little train. He started in 4th place. He actually gained up a position into 3rd. And with faster drivers behind him, at least in clear air, he's been able to hold on. Oh, Jardy is getting all over the back of him at the moment. It is quite exciting to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, this is just awesome. So much flow and undulation through Road Atlanta. As we look down on the bottom side, Matt Campbell, the view backwards. It looks like Emery's miles back, but she's not that far at all. In fact, it's now under 2 seconds. It's 1.8 is the gap, but the snake working its way, slithering its way around the circuit into turn 6 and the link of 7. We'll see if anyone can get a nice clean run. Any mistakes made? Bit of closing up the distance for Gabby. That might have actually meant she had to get on the binders a little more than she wanted. That might therefore allow Heike to make a move down toward 10A if he's close enough. I'm not sure it's close as you'd like. Again, not a huge pocket of air to draft with these 718s.
Yeah, not huge, but it's still a factor that can give you that slight edge down into the braking zone. Jardier looking to the inside, everyone else behind, just showing the nose as well, and that's just wanting to keep their presence obvious in the wing mirrors of those cars ahead. The gap the race leaders come down to about 1.6 seconds, so a good lap so far from Emery as Jardier looks to the inside on Rye coming through the final corner. Things are bunching up in the middle of that pack as well as Gabby has to hold on to position. Here comes Heike with the dive down the inside of turn 1. Oh, causes Gabby to go late on the brakes as well, and she almost runs into the back of Jardier.
Yeah, it's an insanely tricky corner turn 1 to make a pass at. You're trying to unsettle him because it's not as much of a braking point as you think. It's a quite open and fast corner up the hill. But you're right, Gabby nearly got into the backside of Jardier as a result of trying to carry more speed and keep that position. It's not really opened up too much opportunity. A bit more curb on the apex, though, for turn 5. That leaves Gabby a little bit on the back foot, not quite on the power early enough, but she still has the inside. Can Heike make the move?
Yep, let's have a look. Oh, Jardier's just really locking onto the back. Same with Heike versus Gabby, which is the main feature that we see on your screen right now. We're running on board with her in the bottom left box. Of course, with her webcam view in the bottom right. But there's multiple places to look at here. At the front of this train, towards the back of the train. We're keeping track of the progress with the race lead as well. So a lot of action still to come in the final 4.5 minutes of this event. Is that Jardier going for a move on Rye? It certainly is, coming down into the chicane. And Jardier on the inside. Is there any contact between them? He just about squeaks ahead. So Jardier up into P3 with a fantastic pass over Rye. And Rye has a compromised line now coming through under the bridge. Struggling to keep himself ahead of Heike. Matt Malone also getting involved in the back of the shot as well. As everything gets sketchy.
I thought Heike was gone. Yeah, I thought Heike lost it. Definitely got the rear out. Good save, because that could have been a huge drama into the wall and race over for Heike. But nice move from Jardier. Gets it done and clean in turn A. Not even any battle for the apex at 10B. So very well done. Even a fist pump as he went up the hill. He knew he was working for that for quite a while. And now he's got a gap to work with, as he mentioned it. Compromise Rye, and that backs up the rest of the pack. So exactly what Jardier wants. With 3 minutes now to go, he might have been enough for third place, but certainly the battle for fourth far from done, as Gabby did lose out of position to Matt Malone, but Matt Malone is all over Heike.
Yeah, he is. So there's still yet more to come in this little battle pack, that's for sure. Jardier will look to try and pull away because he certainly doesn't want to be involved in this at the moment. They're absolutely nose to tail coming through 10-7. Not a lot of room between them. And does Matt Malone have a run here with the double toe coming down the back straight? He's certainly going to look for a move, perhaps into turn 10A, 10B. No, he's pushing Heike at the moment. He's locked onto the back of him, pushing him down the back straight. This isn't NASCAR racing at a super speedway. But down into the braking zone of turn 10A, 10B, everyone's line astern. But yeah, maybe Matt Malone giving a little bit of help, shall we say, to Heike.
Yeah, bit of assistance. Unsolicited assistance, we'll call it. Bit of a grass. Yeah. It's kind of a half a wheel off, but it's still going to work for Rye as keeps it together. Heike holding a nice tighter line up turn 1, but not going to amount to much in terms of overtaking. It might get him on the backside, though, for a run into 6. We haven't seen anyone take the move into 6. It's, again, I think Rani last year, it's difficult to do because it's more of a setup corner for 7. Meanwhile, at the front, though, it's closed. It's only a half a second at this point, so Emery's got the pace. In fact, 2/10 the difference on the last lap by, and we still have a lap after this, so she absolutely has a chance as we jump back on board with the number 51 machine, closing ever so slightly on the 911. Matt, obviously wearing the Porsche factory numbers.
Yeah, of course, the works drivers in this series, of course, we don't have Richard Leitz or Larry Ten Voorde, as they will have the 912 and the 914 respectively. Of course, no 913, because Porsche are a superstitious lot, I suppose.
Yes.
So that's not a number for them. But yeah, this race lead is getting very, very close now in the dying moments of this race. Just 1 minute, 30 seconds left to go. We're actually going to be pretty close whether we get an extra lap or not, because they're just going to cross the line with a couple of seconds spare, shall we say. So we'll just have to wait and see what the confirmation in terms of the final lap is concerned. I think Rai has had a big problem. Rai has had a big problem. He's dropping down the order. I can see on the left side there on the timing screen, I think he had a bit of contact with Heike coming through the final chicane. So that's unfortunate for him. It kind of spoils the battle there in P3, but we still got this battle for the race lead here to be excited about. By the time this race is done, we still not quite know whether this is the final lap or whether we'll get one more, because they were close coming across the line to being able to get enough time to be able to do another lap. So Emery kind of has to treat this like the last one.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. There's a race that this happened in fact, at Nürburgring in Formula 3, maybe it was Formula 3.8, with Daniel Ricciardo and Robert Wickens, either way, if you want to look it up. And they crossed the line exactly when it went zero, and they just kept their foot in it, and their engineers came on and said, yeah, go again, go. So yeah, you kind of just drive to what the information you have is. And in this case, drive like it's the last lap, because you don't know until you get there if it is. So it's possible. We're just into turn A. If they run, I think they are going to run out of time. I think we're going to be about 10 seconds light. So this is pretty much it for Emery.
Here we go. Can Matt Campbell hold on? Here comes the run, though, out of the chicane for Emery. She might have a chance. Checkered flag is out. Is there an opportunity down the inside of the final corner? She'll drive it in hard, but I think Matt Campbell just about has it by a car length there for the race lead. Matt Campbell in the 911 car. Well, the GT, of course, 718 Cayman wins the race here in race 2 in the Porsche Tag Heuer All-Stars event. Fantastic finish at the very front there. The scraps of that battle for P3 also crossed the line. Jardier is able to hold on to that third spot. Heike P4, Gabby P5, and well, that was so close, and Emery has to be feeling that old phrase in racing, just one more lap, and she would have been able to do it.
You say that, it's tricky to get a pass around here, but you're absolutely right. She'll be annoyed she didn't have one more, but very good effort. Hung it out completely in the last corner. You could see her laughing about how close she was. So no doubt she had fun with that. We had fun watching it. That was almost back to front in a race that didn't have that many issues. So it's not like she got gifted too many positions. She was very strategic about how she worked her way through the field, but Matty Campbell at the top again. So good to have his return go so successfully.
The official gap at the end, 0.116. And like I said, it was basically a car length between them at the line. Fantastic race at the very front there, but Emily would have just been hoping for one more lap just to have a chance. Of course, it doesn't guarantee her the pass of the race lead, but she would have had at least a side-by-side moment. Jardier, good race up into P3. He's had a good day in general, actually, with a couple of good results. Heike in P4, Quick Gabby in P5. Matt Malone for his first event here in the Porsche Tag Heuer All-Star Series finishes in 6th place. So respectable results, both in race 1 and race 2. Depp Yellow in P7 there, and Rai P8 wasn't able to hold on in that leading pack, unfortunately, in those closing laps. Maxime in P9 and Dan Suzuki P10. He's lost a lot of points this race to Emery in that championship fight. Will Ford from Booster Media, P11, Gamer Muscle, P12 here today. But everyone getting themselves to the checkered flag, no retirements in this event, which is absolutely fantastic indeed. But welcome to the Bose post-race show then, Matt. And, well, again, another crazy and another event so full of action.
Yeah, great. I think the feature race was certainly better than the original. The qualifying and the closeness of it. Didn't see a ton of action in the first race, just a lot of sort of a train that wasn't really getting anywhere, whereas the second race, that battle for P3 and then P4 at the end was excellent. Seeing Emery close down what looked like an insurmountable gap to Matt Campbell was very exciting, and she nearly pulled it off. So great driving all the way through yet again. Not as much door-to-door, but that I think is circuit-dependent. It doesn't necessarily lend itself. It's more about trying to get behind someone, following with momentum and not making the mistakes, and it's very tricky in its own right. It's a great driver's circuit, fantastic driver's circuit.
Yeah, it really is, and it was just was on very good display here today. And of course, we still have a couple of races coming up. We have the sim racing professionals taking themselves to the circuit in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup proper in just a couple of moments' time. But we'll continue on with this post-race show because we are getting ready for some interviews. I'm seeing Emily Jones as your race winner here in race 2, getting herself ready to join us in the commentary booth in a couple of moments' time. But what an event from her. Of course, well, winner in race 1, I should say second place in race 2, just correcting myself there, but it could have easily been a double race win for her.
Yeah, it very easily could have been. I mean, it's nice to see Matt back to give her a bit of a challenge, because certain circuits and in the Cup car, Emery wasn't quite as clear cut. You know, it was more difficult to get through, but in the Cayman, she's looked excellent the last 2 race weekends and took the championship lead at Silverstone and now extends it a little bit here. So definitely could have been a double win. But Matty made the mistake in the first race that cost him the chance potentially for the same. Obviously didn't have quite the same qualifying pace, but the race pace was absolutely there. So did what he needed to do. Yeah, I think really good driving standards between the two of them. I'm curious to see how the points lay as we are at the halfway point, obviously. This is the 5th round of 10. We finish on April 24th, will be the finale for the season. But curious to see where the points lie now, because I think Emery's got quite an extension over Dan Suzuki, who is a little bit further down the order today.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see in that respect. Of course, all the races go through the post-race review, so if there are any penalties applied, then of course those will come a little bit later on. That applies in this series and of course in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup coming up in a couple of moments as well. But yeah, you know, we got to set our sights forward just a little bit. Of course, will we see the same kind of racing as we've seen here in the All-Star Series when the sim racing professionals take to the circuit, or is it going to be a completely different beast? I'm very intrigued.
I think it'll be slightly different in that obviously the Cup car does punch a bigger hole in the air. There'll be a bit more drafting as a result from turn 7 down to 10. And we know that they're very aggressive in that series. We know the PESC guys are more than willing to use the push to pass, if you know what I mean. So it's going to be pretty different. That car is going to be moving a lot more. We're going to see people kind of hanging the back end out through the S's and slamming that curb on the inside of 5. The Cup car, with the adjustments in the rear end that they have and available to them and some setup changes, will be able to sustain a bit more impact on the curbs, I think, Connery.
Yeah, I think so too. But you have an interview with, well, someone with the same name as you. So Matt Trevette interviews Matt Campbell. Let's have a listen to our race 2 winner.
Same name, but I think Matty's got a little bit more talent than I have, because back into it and immediately back to the top step, didn't miss a beat.
Well, I certainly just didn't miss a beat in the second race, but yeah, the first race didn't go to plan. A bit of a mistake from me, but yeah, it was really good fun to be able to join again. Unfortunately, missed the last couple of commitments, but yeah, great to be back, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And obviously, the last couple of times I've been in the Cup car and now into the Cayman, and completely different driving style, so taking a little bit of time to adapt to that.
Yeah, trying to figure out track limits, I think, there in turn 5 in race 1. But talk me through the Cayman, because it is very different. You kind of have to be a little bit more graceful, I think, with it, maybe. I mean, have you done much with it? What was your experience?
Yeah, I think it's very much similar to real life. I think it really rewards underdriving it a little bit. Obviously, with the TC and ABS, you obviously need to use these aids to your advantage, but it's very easy to use them too much and then obviously lose a lot of time from that. So it's a bit of a fine art to getting used to it, and it's the same in the game. But yeah, it was a fun challenge to get to drive a different car, and yeah, but completely different to the Cup car, I must say.
Did you think you had it clear cut in race 2? Because Emery was desperately close at the end.
Yeah, I knew she was fast. I mean, I was watching the lap times on my timing, and she was slowly reeling me in. She was just so fast in the sort of last half or middle half of the track. But yeah, she was slowly creeping in. I just had to make sure I didn't do any mistakes. Got very close in the end, but yeah, got it done. But obviously she had a harder job coming from further back. So yeah, hats off to her.
Yeah, well, great race. Good to have you back in the championship, and look forward to moving on to Canada next week, perhaps. Walls are going to be even closer there, so try not to run wide that time.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, in second place, obviously, Emily Jones. We say second place, but I think it's a win for the weekend, because obviously race 1 was pretty straightforward, and race 2 was a heck of a battle from the back.
Yeah, thank you. That was a crazy final race. I just kind of slowly inched forward bit by bit over every lap, and I thought I was going to get him, but I didn't know how much time I was going to have, and yeah, got there just at the end, but not enough time to get past, unfortunately.
Yeah, much closer than I was expecting based on the lap times. Once you got clear of everyone, you really turned up the wick. Were you surprised at how quick you got through the field? Because in the first race, the lap times front to back were close. I didn't think it was going to be easy.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty much like I make a decision on how aggressive I'm going to be depending on like my main rival, I guess, for that race. So when I saw Matt in the middle of the field, and when I saw that he'd already made up positions at the start, I knew I had to be really aggressive. And I don't know, getting through the fields, it's kind of difficult, but the tires kind of wear off. The car starts to move around. They get kind of like handles a bit like a cheeseburger, I guess. But it's good. It's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially around Atlanta, I'm sure you're just kind of floating it through in a few spots. How was it on the curbs?
It was good. So the main pace I was making time on Matt was the left-hander turn late. I don't know, the big left-hander with the one with the massive curb. It actually, this car handles it really well. But you've got to make sure you take it straight, or else it gets on the traction control and it makes a really scary noise and it just goes brrr. Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I find the traction control noise is always very unsettling because you want to trust it, but you're lift, don't lift. Yeah. Well, good job. You figured it out, obviously. So great race this weekend, and obviously Canada next week. Thoughts there?
Yeah. So Canada will be fun. I think it'll be. Is it Mersport or is it Montreal?
No, it's Montreal. It's
Montreal.
Tight walls the whole way around.
That's good. I'm racing in another race at Montreal this weekend, so I'm on form, ready to go. I think it'll be really crazy in the GT4 cars, especially the final chicane. So, it should be fun.
Yeah, well, we'll see if anyone finds that wall of champions. Hopefully it's not you, but good race this week.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, there we go, Connery. We've got Yardier actually jumping in with us. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to be joining us. You've been pretty busy today. I thought maybe you'd be taking a little break, letting it cool down. You were on it the whole way through.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Yeah, it was amazing to race this from my perspective today.
Yeah, great move into turn A as well. You had that done. I saw the little fist pump as you came up the hill. Pretty stoked with that one.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really enjoyable. Like the racing today I was actually worried about the road to Atlanta because it's so narrow. So it's quite hard to make a decent pass when people defend. But today everyone was like excellent, and I had an amazing 3 or 4 fights in both of the races. So I really enjoyed it.
How did you find, I guess, Road Atlanta in general? Because there's not as much drafting. We kind of touched on that a bit in the broadcast, but you seem to be able to find some speed down that straightaway.
Yeah. I don't know how it happened, but first of all, I practiced today a little bit more than usual, and I think it actually helped me a lot. And I think I was really focusing on the exits for that long straight, and it kind of worked together. I don't know how to even put it. I was really surprised about my pace today, and I'm very, very happy. But obviously, Matt and Emily were unbelievable as usual.
I like the shirt, by the way. That's a nice shout out. No one punted you today, so maybe it worked. Maybe you got to wear it every week.
It worked. It was my lucky charm.
We'll tell Jimmy that you'll pay him royalties for it later, whatever. It's fine. But great race. Look, how's the Cayman? Because obviously that's your best result in this season. Is you prefer it now over the Cup car, or are they both great? I know they're both great, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like the Cup car was like a death in every corner. This car is like a little bit sophisticated in this term. In the first race in Silverstone, I didn't like it at all, but on this more narrow track, I think I prefer it. Overall, I feel like in the Silverstone I was struggling with the pace. I couldn't find proper braking tactics and such. But on this track, I don't know, just everything came together, and I really enjoyed the track because that was great fun all over the place.
Wow, interesting to put it that way. It's a smaller track and a tighter track. Maybe the pace of the car fits it better. So, either way, it worked, man. Congrats. Great race. That was a great battle from P3 backwards. So you came out the victor on that one for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, mate.
No worries. I think all the way through, Connery, we have to say it was pretty good to watch, and obviously we're going to get a little bit more of it coming up with PESC with the pro guys. But we did have someone else join us today. There's a lot of Matts. It's an overused name. It's kind of overrated. But Matt Malone got to join us, which was kind of cool, Connery.
Yeah, he really did. I'm not sure whether we are going to get the interview with Matt because we are running short on time here. So we'll just have to wait and see if we'll get confirmation on that one. But yeah,
I'm here. He's here.
Yeah, I know he's here. But I just didn't see his camera on stream, so I didn't know whether we were going to him or not. So
we'll talk to there he is. There's his face, the pretty face everyone knows. Matt joining in your home race. We tried to make it out like, I love it. The speed mullet. Maybe we need to get you in a Cup car doing some ovals or something with that hair right now. But, mine's not much better. It's COVID, right? I can't even get it cut. So, but how was this for you? Joining the series late, but obviously still in the wars up at the front?
Oh man, I can't believe it. It was so much fun. I can't believe I actually had pace to get up there and kind of see the front end. But yeah, it's an American track. I can't really use that to my advantage. I never thought I was too good at Road Atlanta, but man, that was so much fun. It was the most fun I've had in iRacing in a long time. Just to be able to race with all these guys, because it's very rare that we get to in the same race together.
We're going to see you for the rest of the series then? Is that like a promise for moving forward?
That's the plan. That's the plan. Yes, 100%.
Awesome. Well, that means Montreal's next, so hopefully you can get on the practice right away because it comes up in a week's time.
Yeah, well, yeah, I better get on it.
Hey, well, great to see you and great racing. I loved seeing you right in the mix straight away.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was great fun.
Cool. Well, that's the Bo's post-race show pretty much all wrapped up, Connery. But final thoughts, I guess, from you, because we heard all their thoughts and pretty much echoing the sentiment. I think it was interesting what Yardia said, that this car suited, I think, Road Atlanta better, in his opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. It's it really sort of plays to the advantage of the car of being more safe and more stable than the 911 Cup GT3 is. That's for certain. So maybe we'll see a lot of drivers get a little bit more sketchy in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, which is coming up in just a couple of moments' time. Apparently, the traction control on the Caymans goes brr, but there's no such thing in the 911 Cup cars coming up. That was the Porsche Tag Heuer All-Stars event, but we have the countdown to the Super Cup just after this. Join us for that.
CJ, box this lap.
Not right now, boys. Come on, baby. Go for it. Go for it. Go.
Hey, CJ, you wanna come back in? CJ, are you there?
I'm staying out. Maybe later, boys.
CJ, come on back in, buddy.
Risto.
What is he doing?
Oh, go. I'm gonna stay in the car. Don't get up. Here I go.
Hey guys. How about some gas for the car? And I'm gonna get some coffee.
welcome to the countdown brought to you by Tag Heuer to the round 5 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. It comes at you from Road Atlanta. We are at the halfway point of the season here in World Championship competition on the road side of iRacing. My name is Connery Maddock, and for the countdown, I'm joined by one of the commentators, Mr. Paul Smith himself. Paul, we're in Brazelton, Georgia. We are ready and waiting to get that qualifying session started, but we've got a few topics to recap before we get that going. But just your opening remarks.
Yeah, in a state that's known for its peaches, I reckon this race is really going to be a peach. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And given the All-Stars event that we just had, I'm really enthused by what these World Championship drivers can do here today.
Before we get into things, though, here at Road Atlanta, we have a recap video of what happened at Silverstone. It was pretty dramatic, so look at this. Welcome to a relatively sunny Silverstone, if you can believe that, for round number 4.
The drivers all set for the sprint race here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Green flag in the air, away we go, and it's De Jong at the front ahead of Warren, and there's Job looking to make some moves, side-by-side contact. Oh, and it's Rico. Big accident further back. We were afraid something like that could happen. Tommy Erskard to the inside. He makes a lunge, costing himself 2 positions here. Dame Warren got Sebastian Job right behind him.
Sebastian knows he's the one that needs to make gains.
Trying to commit Warren to a tighter line. He's trying to set him up, and that's going to allow Rogers down to try and make a run here. You can see both of them very emotionless.
Josh is just amazingly accurate.
Job locks up the inside tire, and that's allowed Rogers to go through.
Big contact, that's a problem.
Huzzaball and Campbell. And Mitchell can see the checkered flag, and he's going to be the winner here in the sprint race. Away they go for the start of this feature race. Job trying to get the jump here on Collins as they head into the loop for the first time. And there is a multiple accident again at the back of your field, and Max Benneker caught up in all of that. Sebastian Job to the inside of the Scotsman Graham Carroll as he sets the fastest lap of the race so far. Is he going to be working his tyres too hard too soon? Erskard will just give a car's width of room, and contact between the two of them. Erskard's into the tyre wall. Job is compromised, and here comes Backham. And what a race we have. The two champions, Joshua Rogers and Sebastian Job.
It's becoming your Senna and your Prost. PESC at its finest. This is what we expect when you've got this much talent and so many cars on track. Look at the gaggle behind them. This is Costa Constantina. I would love and hate to be in that battle all at the same time. Sebastian is taking no prisoners as he makes his way back through the order. This is really becoming the race of the season so far.
It's going to be Sebastian Job for victory, and big drama in the background of the shot as well. I think Ellis Jr. What a final lap. I'm breathless after that one. Road Atlanta, let's bring it on.
A very dramatic race then, a very dramatic couple of races there at Silverstone, with Sebastian Job taking the feature race win at the end of things, but he still did not seem too happy at the very end of that event. I get the feeling he still feels he's a little bit too far back off of the points collection that Joshua Rogers was able to maintain through the start of the season.
Yeah, but he's working his way back. He's had 3 wins now this season, the same as Josh. He's just had those couple of difficult issues, but he's only 82 points behind now. That can easily be chipped away, and Sebastian's not out of this one, but there you go. Josh Rogers in the lead by 38 points, and then you've got Job, Warren, Ellis Jr., who's had a really good season so far this year, Collins, Benneker, Backham, Sanchez and Carroll. The interesting number there at the side, though, is showing how far they're off at the top, but it's Jeff Giassi in that crucial 20th spot.
Let's have a look at the rookies coming into this season and how well some of them have indeed done. Charlie Collins has been a standout performer from the new sort of 2021 roster here. He's the 6th in the championship, He's had 2 top 5s. His average start is 4th. Of course, we've had Zach Campbell have some decent results as well. He's 11th. And Diogo Pinto further back in the order, but still going along well. He's inside the point, that top 20, where you get yourself booked into next season without having to go through that qualifying series. And Paul, you covered the qualifying series for this season, and you said before that some of these guys have a decent chance of being very competitive here in this season, and it seems like you were right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Collins and Campbell both have a podium each to their name. Pinto has a top 6 finish. I think Campbell has been a little bit inconsistent with getting involved in incidents, but that's a little bit out of his reach, really, in terms of what he can maybe improve there. But Collins, I mean, he's been there in and around those top 10s pretty much all season. He's been a real star this season of that rookie class coming through, and yeah, those 3 right there, the ones to keep an eye on for the second half of the season, in my opinion, because they really do have some tremendous talent.
Let's have a look at the wonderful faces of the drivers that will be competing in today's race. There they are, all on the call, ready and waiting, getting themselves some warm-up laps in as well. We've got about 7.5 minutes of warm-up here before the session starts, just to get themselves acclimatized to what the track conditions are at the moment. And, well, it's cooler than it was in the All-Star session, let me tell you that. But still, 31 degrees Celsius on the track. So we'll have to see how that factors in to the racing here today, where, you know, throughout the first couple of rounds of the season, it's been a bit of a struggle with the tires for some of these drivers, you know, getting them to the end of these races, especially that feature. Of course, Kevin Ellis Jr. was one of the people that complained about the tires a lot, same with a couple of others in the mid-pack.
Yeah, Ellis Jr. didn't do too bad in Brazil when he was complaining about the tyres, and was able to get a win. So, yeah, maybe, yeah, your tyres may feel bad, but everybody else's do as well.
Well, we'll have to wrap things up quickly here. That is the end of the countdown presented by Tag Heuer for round number 5 of Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup here at Road Atlanta. We're going to take a very, very quick break, but Paul and Matt will be with the commentary just after this. 40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? Interlagos, Barcelona, Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, Monza. This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
laps. Away we go from the start of this final feature race in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Brilliant launch.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is Racing for Immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup.
Hello everybody and welcome along to round number 5 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. My name is Paul Smith. Here I'll be joined shortly by Matt Trivett on commentary, but it is round 5 here at Road Atlanta. One of the one of the best circuits in North America, in my opinion. These World Championship drivers are going to be competing against each other on this tight twisting and also often fast track around here. But yeah, we're looking forward to this event. Of course, as always here with this championship, you get 2 races, a sprint race and a feature race. And well, let's take a look at where they are racing. So here we are then, Road Atlanta, Braselton, Georgia. And it's undulating circuit. We'll see those undulations in a second. There's the track then. See how it has a twisty opening part to the lap? Turns 1, 2, 3, the S's, through to 5, which has got a nasty bump. 6, and then turn 7 is the crucial point, because that takes you down the long, fast back section down towards the chicane at turns 10A and 10B. Under the bridge at 11, and then turn 12 is that final corner before the start and finish line. And just to give you an impression of what the undulations are like here, well, we'll be able to show you that on this 3D map, because it is quite a change of elevation here around this circuit. You'll see the when they're racing, the way that the cars are having to deal with the bumps and also the rises and falls of this circuit here as they go along around this track. Of course, 2.5 miles long, quite a high speed back section. There you go. That just gives you an indication of what the undulations are like here around this circuit. So drivers going to be competing not just against themselves and against each other, but also against this track as well, which is quite a tricky one to race on. But these are World Championship drivers and they earn that right, and they are the best 40 drivers here in sim racing today. And well, fortunately for us, not only is it myself in the commentary booth, but we've also got Matt Trivett as well, as always, Sadakist. Oh well, Matt, we saw what the All-Stars were like earlier. This is the main event now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a lot more intense. We heard from Matt Campbell and Yardier saying that the 718 was great around Road Atlanta. The Cup car is going to be a different beast altogether. No ABS, a little bit more trail braking required. Heavier rear end. The 718s obviously, they came in a mid-engined car. Technically, the Cup car is a rear-engined car, and we know that it does have a lot more drafting. So we'll see a lot more, I think, overtaking opportunity under braking in turn 10A and B specifically. But it's tricky. I mean, you saw on that track map as well. A lot of the tracks that use elevation will kind of go across the landscape, and carve into it. This one goes straight down it with a twisty S section, compresses at the bottom, and then goes right back up the valley on the other side. And it does mean the car is going through a lot of force in that first sector. And I think the first sector here is the highlight of the circuit. It's extremely technical and fast and fantastic as a driving point of view, but to race it and get it right is another element altogether.
No, I mean, I actually got some experience this week of racing around this track in this car, in the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car on iRacing. You can compete on these tracks each and every day, but it is a tricky car to deal with, especially on the opening lap with cold tyres in the race. You've got to be so careful getting the throttle down here. But the drivers will be heading towards qualifying in just a moment here, Matt. I mean, keys to this lap, we spoke to a few of the drivers in the All-Stars. It's that one big point is the run out of turn 7 down that back stretch.
Well, yeah, inevitably that is one of them. And certainly if you want to get overtaking done, you have to nail that. But for me, turn 1, okay, there's a bit of a line variation. Some people will carry more, I guess, track width to the exit. That tightens you up the hill. But getting the braking right in 2, slamming that curb on the inside of 3, and then opening up turn 4, that links the whole first sector. If you can get that part right without sort of locking or snagging overworking one of the rear tires, keeping everything in control, you're going to get a great run out of 5, up over the wide curb. Link all that together, you're on for a good lap. And then the next part, obviously, is turn 7. 12, not too bad. The one thing you want to worry about with 12 is that if you're in a battle, you can easily overdo it a little bit and get out on the grass. And if your wheel's not straight, you lose grip, you still have an input in, you're going to spin. And the wall comes at you pretty quick there. Either the outside wall if you're way off, or you hook and you end up darting back into the track on the inside wall. So not really a point on a single lap, on a qualifying lap. There you can see it. We're perfectly timed. We jump on board there, smash that inside curb. But when you're under pressure from other drivers, it's pretty easy to make a mistake there.
Well, this is, I believe this is Christopher Beats that we're looking at right now so it's the 119, I do apologise. It's a different number there for Pekka Toivonen in one of the Finnish driver in the Finnish team of Kova, heading down through the S's, as you mentioned, that compression, and then this corner, turn 5, it has a nasty bump on the exit of the curb there, and it's so easy to lose the back end around there. Turn 6 has got a nice little bit of camber into it, so you can carry a little bit more speed than you expect. Little dab of throttle and onto the brakes for 7. Look over the curb to try and get onto the power as early as possible down this back straight. But you're right, Matt, it is all about the speed going down through the S's that will gain you the most time on the lap. You've got more to lose there.
Yeah, and more to lose long term as well, because if you're getting it right, you shouldn't be overworking the tire. The car should flow very naturally and be very accurate. But as soon as you get too much curb on any of those corners, or you start to get a little behind your line, you're going to be putting more forces on the tires, on the rears, and we know already that in this series that can be the difference to everything. So it's not even just that single lap you're thinking about when you're in that corner and in that situation. It's the entire race pace. So yeah, definitely something to watch as we swap it over and look a little further up the field. Well, typically in terms of points, at least further up the field, with car number 18 taking us around the track currently, and that of course being Sindre Setsas, who's been within the mix of the top 10 throughout the year, but definitely could use a really solid result. Always in battle, I will say. That's one thing with him, is he's never really had a clean run in any race. He's always been going at it with someone.
Yeah, you can see how close the qualifying times are after the first lap times have been put in. The majority of the grid deciding to take to the pits to get a fresh set of tyres for one more assault on this track. Sindre, though, keeping out there on track in 12th place, at the moment there in qualifying. And Sindre just heading into turn 6, trying to carry the speed through there, running it right out the curb. See, possibly unsettling the car a little bit, and he's abandoned it. He realizes it's not working.
Yeah, and does abandon it. It's not like they're pitting for track position as you might have to do in real life. Obviously, everyone gets their own track for qualifying. It's the way that it works. Anyone who's done iRacing will be familiar with it, but if you're not, yeah, you basically get a set number of laps in time to do them, and you don't have any traffic to contend with. Lots of curb on the inside of turn 12 for these guys. It's the second car we've seen now really attacking that last corner, and obviously that little extra 4 feet, I suppose, if that, on the curve straightens out the corner and lets you keep more throttle on it. This is where I was talking about, top of the hill. You want to nail turn 3. That opens up 4. You use the curve the whole way around to help rotate the car. Nice and wide entry into 5, and this is down the hill in the S's, or excuse me, into the S's. They aren't numbered. I was counting up sequentially. 5 is obviously onto the straight. So, but the S's are super important, and you can see how the setup really comes out of turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, Lockwood, we're looking at Brian Lockwood right now. He's out there, not setting any times though at the moment. There's 4 drivers without times: Matt Backham, Brian Lockwood, Johan Hart, and also Josh Thompson. So Lockwood just working his way around. You can see the standings on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see how close it is out there as well. Josh Rogers leading the way provisionally on pole, ahead of Charlie Collins, Dane Warren, Mitchell de Jong, Tommy Erstgaard, Zach Campbell there in 6th place. One of your rookies, along with Collins, that we focused on before the race. He's finding himself in 6th place, ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr., David Williams, Alejandro Sanchez, and Jeremy Boosloop. And I can tell you that 1st to 34th are covered by 0.9 seconds, so less than a second, covering all the way down now to 35th, because somebody else has just set a lap time there. So extremely close. It's a quick lap around here, as we've seen all the way through today's broadcast. So Matt, you're going to see how close this field is in terms of lap times in qualifying, but that's just going to then fall over then into the race.
Absolutely, and you're seeing that compounded by the fact that this is the shorter circuit. So the difference, the percentage difference is much smaller. And we said it, 40 cars around Road Atlanta in any series in the world, I would say, you'll see the back markers be a problem. You know, the leaders will catch the back end. In PESC, that's not guaranteed. Everyone is that close. And believe it or not, it is enough track surface for all of them. The only thing that might have influence on that is you know, battling, mistakes, contact, whatever the case may be, mitigating circumstances, I'll say. But yeah, it's incredible how close these guys are all the way through the field. And you can easily be a protagonist, and we've seen it, the sort of the usual suspects at the front, but you could be 35th in this championship and really be one small detail away from being right up there. So it's almost heartbreaking to be that close and so far, it seems at times, but that's the nature of it. It's remarkably competitive.
Well, speaking of someone who's not been having fun this season, but got his first points finish last week with an audacious move around the outside. 2 weeks ago, should I say, with an audacious move around Copse Corner. This is Josh Thompson. He's not set a lap time yet. This is a hot lap for him. He's trying to get himself further up the grid. Now, I can tell you at the top of the standings, look at that, Charlie Collins provisionally on pole position ahead of Josh Rogers, and I believe that Rogers has used all of his allocated laps. So will this be the 3rd week in a row that Josh Rogers will not be in pole position? Well, Mitchell de Jong, he wants to get to the top of the standings to make it 2 rounds in a row that he's on pole position, but he's going to have to do a bit of work here. 0.17 of a second to catch up to Charlie Collins here.
When you say 2 rounds in a row, keep in mind in the Coca-Cola series that Mitchell also had the pole over there in his debut. So he's been really, really on it lately in terms of the iRacing performances, and definitely still a championship contender here in PESC, as we see him beautifully and very calm, collectedly go through the complex, turn 10 complex, and then finishing out the lap. See where this puts him. Look pretty tidy. Whether or not it's fast sometimes is hard to tell from these camera angles, as he gets a little bit too much. That's commitment in 12, but unfortunately that will cost him.
Yeah, it will cost him. Here's David Williams then, another one of those drivers racing out the same, and you can see he's not happy with his run out of turn 5 there.
Yeah, and that's so easy to do. You want to take as much at the entry curve as possible, but you need to enter it smoothly, keep the car settled so that the back end is already compressed and on the tire when you turn it in on the left to get the apex. And the car was just bouncing a little bit too much, flicked it in, caught the inside curve, and you can see the rear end step out. So you really have to let the car settle in, and that's exactly what I was saying about chasing it down the hill. You're going to eventually run into that. Bumps here are brutal, tires are going to get overworked, and you lose your pace.
Yep, and Williams, well, he's going to stay out there. You might as well stay out there, try and get as much of a run in here just to try and get yourself in a little bit of a rhythm. He plunges downhill, such a steep final section of the course underneath the bridge and across the line. Williams finds himself, he does improve, up into 6th place. Now, here's Max Benneker, currently on an out lap here by the looks of things. So he is getting himself prepared for a second qualifying lap. And remember, in this series, when that clock strikes 0 in qualifying, that's it. that's qualifying done. You get no second chance to finish the lap. So here he comes, Benneker, down the hill to start his final attempt at potentially getting a pole position here as they go through the left and then plunge through the S's. And yeah, so these drivers, they've been pushing it to the limit. I mean, a 1:20 is a fast lap around here, so some of these drivers do have an opportunity if they're still out there. Thibaut Casabon is going to be pushing this one, that's for sure, as he runs through turn 7 here and get on the power. Finds himself in 16th place, which is not too bad. Top 20 so far for Thibaut. He'll be hoping for a good race here.
Absolutely. Interesting stat as well. The top 5 drivers in the championship, Rogers, De Jong, Job, who's made actually great ground after Silverstone, Dane Warren and Kevin Ellis Jr., 4 of them possess all of the 8 wins. I include the sprint races on the season. The only one that hasn't got a win out of that is Dane Warren. So consistency has been very good to him. Exception being obviously 28th in the feature race at Silverstone, was caught up in some early contact. The one that's won the most is in terms of features, is Sebastian Job. In terms of overall, he's tied with Rogers. But in terms of features, that's impressive because he had a very unfortunate situation, obviously, where he disconnected in technical difficulties in Brazil and then got caught up in some incidents in Imola in the feature race. So if Sebastian can continue that performance and get that feature race win again today, or at least another good result, he's going to close this championship gap down.
And that's it. And it's once we reach the end of today's event, it will be the halfway point of the season. Plenty of time still left to find themselves a good result here. But let's take a look then at your starting grid here today. And it is pole position for the rookie, Charlie Collins, his first ever pole position in the series ahead of Josh Rogers, Warren and Bootsloop on the second row with Mick de Jong and Williams on row number 3. Row 4, Ellis Jr. and Ostgaard with Sanchez and Gassi, row 5. Row 6 for Campbell and your reigning champion Job. Rest of your runners and riders running through the field. Carroll there in row 9. He won't be happy with that. One of the drivers we focused on, Diogo Pinto, down on row 11 here in this race. Salvatell's Josh Thompson sharing row 14. Aichen Guvan, he'll be disappointed with that down in row 15. And still, this grid carries on. Daniel Lafuente, row 17. Carlos Fenolosa, the only driver yet to score a point in the championship, on row 18.
Yeah, it's unfortunately for him, that is the case, but we'll see if he can get on the board today. Not the best starting position, but look, I'm going to call it. There's going to be some drama today. This circuit, tight, fast, flowing, very technical in a lot of spots. There's going to be some drama. There's going to be some people taken out by, I think, outside influence, shall we say. To put it politely, Paul.
Well, let's hope there isn't, because
I agree. I'm never hoping for it, but I think it might happen. Let's just put it that way.
Well, we've had some tremendous racing here in this championship so far, and well, I mean, if the previous rounds are anything to go by, this should be a good one. Last time we were here in this championship was a special event as well. It really was a tremendous race. But the drivers, you can see them all lined up on the grid there, down the hill for the back of the grid. Yeah. So really unfortunate for those towards the rear of the grid here. But drivers getting ready, green flag, and we are off for the sprint race in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. Round number 5 at Road Atlanta. Good start at the front for Collins. Rogers has followed him through, with Warren slotting into 3rd place. Bootsloop in 4th, then De Jong. Ellis Jr. has moved up into 6th place as they go through turn number 3. Car running wide there a little bit was David Williams, who was battling with Ellis Jr. And then through the S's now, you can see a couple of them too wide. You don't want to be too wide through here, but some drivers have little choices. There's a car on the grass there. I think that was Pinto further down in the field. It was. Josh Thompson's dropped down the timing sheet down to the back of the field. So there's a number of cars had an incident. Simon and Hart also involved in that one. Into turn number 7, you can see the dives down the inside and contact there in turn number 7. and Vibel Kazabor, one of those caught up in it. Martin Krunker, another one caught up in that instant. Rico's falling back as well. There's Krunker, just cannot get back on track, and that's one of the problems with this track there. It's so easy to make a dive down into turn 7, and before you know it, you're in somebody's quarter panel.
Yeah, and 6, you said it as well. You think you can get in there, but that camber and the fact that you can carry speed because you're immediately on the brakes, it's less about the exit speed, rather how much you carry at the apex. You can defend it really well, so it's misleading when you want to try and make a pass. And still pretty line astern at the front, but the inevitable has happened toward the rear. Now we've got a good little battle pack forming. In fact, 2 battles. I think I saw Maximilian Benecke trying to make his way back forward, and he's got Sebastian Job with him in that pack. Now, Seb might like that because we know how aggressive Max can be about getting through the pack, and maybe Seb can get a hole punched for him. But at the front right now, you have to say the battle you need to watch is Kevin Ellis Jr. looking for a result. He was leading the championship after round 1. I know that's early to call it, but he then fell off quite a bit and made a few mistakes. He's going to want to get back at the VRS drivers as quickly as he can.
And we have had a change at the front, by the way, because Rogers has moved to the front ahead of Collins. Collins was at the front at the end of the lap, so there's obviously been a mistake happen between the two of them. And so Collins down to second place then in this one. In fact, no, I take that back. It was on lap 1 where Collins dropped down to second place. Rogers clearing off at the front. He'll want to try and run away here at the front and try and get as many points over his championship rivals in De Jong and Job, because Job actually dropped down the order a little bit at the end of lap 1. He's down to 13. He won't be happy with that, because the last thing you want to be is in the middle of a pack as competitive as this around this track, because one little mistake from somebody in front of you here, Matt, and you get caught up in somebody else's accident.
Absolutely, yeah. And as I mentioned earlier in the All-Star race, there's not a lot of time to rest here. You're constantly on it, so a mistake in front of you, and there's not much time to react to it as a result of that. So, yeah, Collins sitting second now. I didn't quite see exactly how Josh got by, but we know that they've been running pretty consistently together throughout the year. Collins having a fantastic rookie campaign, but definitely beneficial to Josh to have him as the rear gunner yet again. Dane Warren, we mentioned it, yet to find a win, but sitting 4th in the championship is all over this battle as well. And Jeremy Bootaloo, someone who certainly I think is capable of being higher in the championship, but has had some unfortunate incidents, definitely wants to try and keep this clean as well. But very close grouping all the way down the field. As we look back a little bit further, we say mid-pack, but really it's the same train as Maximilian Benecke in 12th, as Sebastian Job just behind. And it's the battle for 8 you have to watch toward the end of this race that determines pole position, remember, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Tommy Erskard holding on to that position at the moment. But you look at it, as you mentioned, it is a queue of traffic. Rogers, Collins, Warren, Bootaloo, De Jong, Ellis Jr., Williams, Erskard, Sanchez, Campbell, Gyasi, Benecke, and Job. Then there's Fluke not that far behind them as well, and the rest of them go charging through. It's as quick as that as they go through the picture. So tremendous action, but they're all just getting themselves into a rhythm here now. They've calmed themselves down after those opening couple of laps. Get yourself into a rhythm, get yourself into a position where you feel that you can maybe make some moves, but the most important thing is just keeping it on track, and that turn 5 exit catches out so many people so many times. Ellis Jr., you can see in that dark red car behind De Jong, really just starting to show his nose a little bit behind, but Bootaloo, tremendous job, as you mentioned there, not had the best of start of the season, but up there in 4th place.
Absolutely is. Yeah, no question. He's unfortunate. He's at pace. He just hasn't been able to put it all together on race day. Speaking of Kevin, as you say, looking a little bit more aggressive early on, we know he likes to be, right? We've heard his radio messages. He wants to get the moves done early. He wants to take the tire advantage when he has it rather than try and hold on to them like some drivers elect to do with strategy. So definitely someone to watch. It could be a little bit more aggressive in this mid part. It's crazy to think we're already on the mid part, but such the nature of Road Atlanta, but this sort of lap 4, 5, 6 section of the race.
Yeah, this track is relentless, isn't it? It just keeps coming at you as they go through turn number 1 then. So Bootlip just hanging on to that front three of Rogers, Collins and Warren. It's Australian driver from the UK, and then another Australian at the front with Bootlip from France, De Jong from the United States, and Kevin Ellis Jr., proud Scotsman there in 6th place. But look at this, Warren just sat behind the 2 leaders right now. Is this just a case of just keeping it safe, keeping it composed, not working the tyres too hard, maybe getting a good run ready, getting himself prepared for the feature race coming up shortly after this race?
Yeah, and it's pick your battles, certainly. You've got such a stern line of cars behind you that a mistake right now would cost you dear, and you'd be out of it for the feature race. You'd be so far back down the order. So 3rd place is not a bad position to be in. That would translate to 6th place at the start of the feature, so he doesn't have too much to worry about. I'm sure if something occurs in front or an opportunity presents itself, he'll go for it. But Connery, who's been in the infield today, checking things out. In fact, where are you right now? Turn 7, Connery?
Yeah, something like that on the inside of turn 7. I have an interesting thing a little bit further down the order. The eagle-eyed viewer will spot Brian Lockwood down on pit lane. It was a technical problem. Let's take a listen.
My screen just switched to my left screen for no reason.
So it seems that, his screen's had a bit of an issue. Everything went to his left screen, because most of these drivers run triple screen setups, and he had to drive just his left screen for a bit, and he's pulled it down towards pit lane to try and get that fixed. Hopefully he gets back in the race to pick up a couple of positions that, from instance, that might happen later on. But yeah, horrible technical issue there for Brian.
That's imagine trying to drive straight in your motor car whilst looking through the passenger window. Or the driver's window if you drive on the left-hand side.
So basically winter in Canada.
Yes, exactly. that's what we can equate that to being like. But you can't be competitive at all when you get a technical problem like that. But this is the thing with sim racing, with esports. Motorsport, the real world of motorsport, you have technical problems with the cars. These things can happen in sim racing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sucks because it seems so avoidable, but so too do mechanical issues in the real world when you often tear them apart and figure out what it is. So super unfortunate, but we'll focus a little bit further forward. We are on board with Max Benecke, who sits currently in position 12, car number 11, and into turn 1. And you can see pretty much everyone using pretty similar lines. I mentioned you can attack that corner and get a little wider, but it does mean you're kind of hanging the car out a bit more. So this gives them a pretty clean run to turn 2, 3, snap it over the curb and down to the S's and 4, open it up. You want to make these as straight as possible without unsettling it. So they are taking a lot of curb in the mid part of the S's, but that does straighten out your braking point for turn 5. And that's, if you go back to qualifying where we talked about with I believe it was David Williams we were on board with, that's where he unsettled the car too much because he wasn't straight onto the braking, got up on the curb a bit too much, and it kills the rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And those curbs, though, they can be brutal as well. Oh, Benecke just getting the rear end out a little bit through 7. Job saw the opportunity. But this is the problem. When you're in a slipstream train like this, you might be saying, well, Job's got a slipstream right now. But Benecke's got a slipstream in front of him as well, as we look forward to Warren as well. In that 3rd place, the Australian putting the pressure on these 2 compatriots in front, as they go up through underneath the bridge, plunge downhill once again. This gives you a real appreciation of the undulating nature of this track. Careful not to run wide there, Dane, out of turn 12. But again, just non-stop. Just absolutely non-stop. You can see these drivers working the wheel so hard.
Yeah, and we look backwards now from the leader, so that's exactly the train that we're talking about. Lots of curb again for Collins behind as we get to the compression at the bottom of the S's. Not as much grass for Josh, perhaps being able to see a little bit more in front of him. He doesn't have to worry about following or getting caught in the troughs of another car, so it's easier to pick your line in that sense. But yeah, pretty smooth sailing, pretty clean race at this point. Bit of a change as we see the Red Bull come up over the hill of Sebastian Job ahead of the orange and white Team Red Line Maximilian Benecke car. So that is one move forward. Gets Sebastian back to P12. That's where he started. So they're still down 1 spot. Hasn't been able to make a lot of progress toward maybe a better starting position in the future.
Yeah, it's as I say, this slipstream train. If you get in the slipstream train, then you can't really make that progress forward that you would like to make and you expect to make in slipstream. Here, down the inside goes Warren. Dane Warren's had enough of this now. He wants to get into second place. He wants to start moving forward in this one. He wants to get a win here this season. His best result was a second place in the opening round sprint race. So Warren gets past Collins and he's now got his sights set on his fellow Australian Josh Rogers at the front of his field, but that was bold and very decisive there.
Good move, clean move, and Charlie definitely saw him coming, left him the appropriate space, tucks back in behind so not to lose out in this draft battle, because very easily can get pushed aside and have everyone freight train by. So yeah, Dane Warren, we said it. I mean, if an opportunity came up, he would take it, but didn't have to work too hard, actually, considering he got a great run. Now he's a little wide off of 5. This is what we talk about with 6, and Charlie, I think, is aware of it. Not quite far enough alongside. Can't really make a dive here, because you mentioned it. Camber, carry some speed, and then you're immediately on the binders for 7, so he's much better suited to try and set up for a pass now.
Yeah, look at the different line there taken by Collins compared to Warren, slightly wider out of the corner, trying to carry the speed down the straight here. Half a second between Rogers and Warren, and then it's as close as you like for the rest of them. But the problem is, if these two start battling too hard, they're just going to allow Rogers to run away at the front here, as we're already getting to the start of the final lap here, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. But at this point, it's either you're battling for position or you're settling for the start in the feature. Forget Rogers. I don't think anyone's going to be able to catch him at this point in time. So really is about Collins trying to make amends for the fact that he lost the position. He's not willing to let it go easily at all. And we haven't seen a break pack. Normally we see sort of 2 or 3 cars at the front kind of get away from everyone else. But this has been very consistent all the way through. So we'll see if anyone in the range of sort of David Williams, Tommy Oostgaard, Alejandro Sanchez, you know, that position 7, 8, 9. Keep an eye on that toward the end of the lap if anyone's going to try and make that play for pole position.
Well, if anybody, it's going to be Sanchez. You could just see him in the background of the shot then through the S's, looking very close to the back of Tommy Oostgaard. You can see background of the shot there in the light blue and dark blue car, Sanchez. So he's trying to get 8th place, as Matt has said there. Gets you pole position for the feature race here today. That could be, I mean, it's a question of you want to be up at the front, give you the best opportunity, but you also don't want to be creating the hole in the air for everybody else behind you, because this group here, this gaggle of cars, 1st to 14th is this queue of traffic here into turn 10A, 10B. A couple of dives further back, doesn't look to be any change, but at the front here, Joshua Rogers for his 3rd sprint race victory here this season in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup through the final corner. And look at that, he took a deep breath there. He was under pressure throughout that race. Warren and Collins finish at your top 3. We've got side-by-side action. Maxim Ramstein involved in this one. A little bit of rubbing there with Ayachan Guvan, unable to keep it on the track there. Here is further down Daniel Lafuente in 30th place, making it across the line. There's some smoke of a car in the wall as well. And that is it for your drivers. So let's take you through your provisional results then for the sprint race. And it is Josh Rogers from Australia who wins that one by just under half a second ahead of Dane Warren. Then Charlie Collins, the Brit, in 3rd place ahead of the Frenchman Jeremy Bouteloup. Mitchell de Jong from the United States in 5th ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr., the Scotsman, in 6th. David Williams from the UK in 7th, and Tommy Oostgaard going to be starting on pole position in 8th place, the man from Norway. Alejandro Sanchez just missing out in 9th place there. And then you see the rest of the field working their way through here. Zach Campbell finished in 10th place. Sebastian Job 12th. He'll be a little bit disappointed with that, if I'm honest. And then those drivers from 31st down, there was issues for quite a few of them. So looking back to Rico, Castroledo, Thompson, Fenalosa, Dan Beats, Brian Lockwood we heard with the hardware issue. Martin Krunker, of course, we saw on lap 1 around, and Jack Sedgwick all did not finish the race there. So that was blink and you'll miss it there, Matt. That was tremendous to see in that first race.
Yeah, that was excellent. I mean, not a lot of passing, as we know, but you can tell the pressure was certainly high You can see the relief from Josh Rogers when he crossed the line, that sigh. But it's intense because it's such a busy track. Like you said, it comes at you very quickly. There's not a lot of time to rest. That's the nature of smaller circuits. You're very busy the whole time around. So it may not be a lot of side-to-side action, but you're definitely working hard to keep the position. So another win for Josh Rogers, his third sprint race victory of the season, fourth overall, if you include the features in that total. But Josh, didn't quite go as to plan in qualifying like we're used to seeing, but you still managed to get by your teammate and sail away.
Yeah, no, in quali, I was on a really nice lap, and then into the last chicane, I think I was just kind of overthinking about it a little bit and completely missed that first apex. So, I mean, still P2, you know, to start. And yeah, I think, you know, on that first lap, I suppose Charlie was kind of focusing on not fighting too hard. Obviously, that's the smart way to go about things at the beginning. I think there was probably a few opportunities that he could have had to get me back. But you know, ultimately they battled a little bit. That gave me just enough space that I needed to try and just kind of keep the consistency up and keep it going from there. But obviously we're from P8 now, so we'll see how things go. We're kind of back in the thick of it. So hopefully we can get through the first lap, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, tricky circuit to pass on. Does that worry you being a bit? I mean, obviously you expect to be there with the qualifying. You know it's going to be reverse grid, but you know what do you expect coming through?
To be honest, I don't think the track is too bad to pass that. Really, there's only that one passing opportunity down the back straight. You know, you could either go both ways, left or right, and it kind of plays out a little bit differently, but I think you can still get some moves done. Whether it's going to be so simple when in a train, the cars in front of you have draft as well. Not so sure. I guess that's something that we'll figure out soon. But yeah, ultimately, I think in this one, we'll try and get through the start and then try and pick off cars slowly, kind of one by one, and we'll see where we go from there.
All right. Well, best of luck with it. We'll be looking forward to it very keenly, I think, as well, with the battling being as close as we were, Paul, all the way through. I mean, you said it. Less contact than I expected. I thought there might be a bit more desperation, I guess, a little bit further in the field. Turn 6 and 7, I thought maybe we might see some people show the nose, but it was pretty clean.
It certainly was clean. It certainly whets your appetite for the feature race, which will be coming up very shortly after this.
CJ, box this lap.
Not right now, boys. Come on, baby. Go for it. Go for it. Go.
Hey, CJ, you wanna come back in? CJ, are you there?
I'm staying out. Get you ready, boys.
CJ, come on back in, buddy. What is he doing?
Oh, go. I'm gonna stay in the car. Don't get up. Here I go.
Hey guys. How about some gas for the car, and I'm gonna get some coffee.
back then to coverage of round 5 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup here, powered by iRacing. And let's have a look at the live standings as they are at the moment then. So Josh Rogers then currently in first place here, Matt. Mitchell de Jong 53 points behind now. Dan Warren moves himself up into third place after the qualifying and the opening race of the day here. Sebastian Job now 106 points behind. He needs a really good result out of this second race.
Absolutely, he does. It's a deficit that it's been compounded now by a 12th position in qualifying, followed that by 12th position in the race. Not at all where he would have wanted to be. The crazier part about this is, okay, yes, there's 85 points available per weekend if you get pole, sprint race, feature race, win. But there's 50 races in a feature race. Josh Rogers has more than that as a gap to second place in the championship, and we're at the halfway point. That's remarkable considering the closest to this championship, and I'll give you the reason why. Here's his run of results. First in the first sprint race, 23rd, okay, in the feature. That was due to contact. You get up over the curve at Interlagos. Actually took out Alejandro Sanchez at the same time. First in the sprint race, Spain, second in the feature. Second in the sprint race, Italy, first in the feature. Double second at Silverstone, and now a first in this race. He has been first or second with the exception of the one race all year. That is incredible from Josh Rogers.
The consistency is sensational. There's only one word for it, is sensational. De Jong, he's a championship contender. He's trying to keep in the hunt there. He's been getting some good results here. He'll be wanting to try and keep Josh behind him in this feature race. Of course, more points available to the drivers as well with the feature race. So yeah, they'll be trying it. Let's hear what's been happening behind the scenes. Connery, what have you been hearing from the drivers?
Quite a relaxed atmosphere, weirdly, in the mid-pack and towards the back. There's a lot of team drivers. There was one in particular that I heard was just watching meme videos in between the races, so I can't explain what that's about, but it seems like they're having quite a bit of fun sort of in the mid-pack and back in between the races, which, it's a way to deal with the pressure, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to find those outlets, haven't you, Connery, to try and just calm yourself down, ready for the second race.
Yeah, you really do, no matter what method you use to do it. But, just to recap that first race, the performance from Josh Rogers, absolutely fantastic stuff for him, credit where credit's due. I can't help but feel that he's not usually challenged in these sorts of situations by a couple of the drivers behind him. Hopefully that'll change for this race and the next couple of races of the season. But if they're going to give him an easy time like that, then, well, he already has one hand on that trophy, doesn't he?
I'm just really happy for each of you guys being from Britain that you got to take a vacation and be in the sun in Atlanta right now. So I might have to come down there next time. But yeah, you are very socially distanced. In fact, I'm even in between you still. So keep it together on either side of me, okay?
Well, I mean, one thing I will say, thank you, Connery, for that, but Josh will not like hearing Connery saying that he's got one hand on the trophy. He will be very much a take each race as it comes. But
to that point, I say he has a nice lead at 50 points, which is great considering, but it can quickly evaporate with a few dramas. So, yeah.
Well, here's your grid then. So as we said, Tommy Østgaard, after finishing 8th, he's on pole position ahead of alongside David Williams. Kevin Ellis Jr. and Mitchell de Jong with Jeremy Bootlub and Charlie Collins on row 3. Dane Warren and Joshua Rogers, and then the rest of your field are as they finished race number 1. So they're running down the order then. Job on row number 6. He'll be wanting to move forward. Beneker as well. He's not having the best of times out there today with Fluke as well. And further down, Aishan Guvan found himself on row 12. Maitakaida Soya down there, row 15. And well, then you've got the drivers who got involved in incidents. But we're getting ready for the start of this race. Drivers will be finding themselves to the grid. We'll be all set for race number 2 here of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. This feature race is underway here. Green flag waves. And we're underway for 20 laps of action here down towards turn number 1. It is Østgaard who leads this one then into 1. Rest of the drivers working their way through, trying to keep it all tidy and clean. Look at Kevin Ellis Jr. coming up alongside. He's moving forward. He's into second place, although David Williams is not giving that one up through turn 4 there. We've got a car taken to the escape road and a big accident. Further back, they've got a car upside down in the fence there.
Yeah,
There's more going on. Oh, as we've got a car spinning. That's Alejandro Sanchez in the background, losing it out of turn 5.
Yeah, not at all what you want to see further back. I believe that was Thibaut Casabon that may have been upside down. Hard to read the number when it's backwards, but huge drama all the way down the field. And Alejandro Sanchez, the poor guy, 3rd in the championship last year, but he has had an absolute mare this season. He's back running, but my goodness, man, he just can't get it together. He just can't seem to get any luck on his side.
As we see close door-to-door battling further up your field here. This is your top 3. And Collins duking it out here with Williams de Jong as well. Is involved in this. Jeremy Boothlu. Josh Rogers finds himself up a position into 7th. End of lap 1 already. Look at them launching over the curb. You got Job trying to make a move on Jeff Gyasi. You got Beneker trying to protect as well. In front of them, Campbell. Oh, a little bit of a rub there. Campbell gets up on the grass. Rest of them working their way through into 3. Oh, no. Job's involved in that one. Job's around. That's your champion from 2020. And this has been the event to forget here today at Road Atlanta.
He's had a few. I think Brazil would certainly be up there as well, but that is not at all what he wants. Just Constantina effect. He couldn't quite get it turned in at the top of the hill, and then it just chased him the whole way through, and he gets a little tap, and around he goes. Luckily, an escape road there, but he won't be looking at it that way. He's lost positions either way, and more positions lost for Thomas Tettala, who goes well out wide. Now we're seeing the drama. Now we're seeing the gloves come off in the feature race, and cars everywhere as he rejoins the pack and tries to desperately keep momentum down the straightaway. Lights flashing as well on number 51. That, of course, being Josh Thompson looking for a result this week.
Yeah, had a nightmare in race 1, tried to get himself some points here in race 2. De Jong moving forward into 3rd place. And there we go, there in the main box, Sebastian Job. This is a replay of what happens. He saw Campbell go off at turn 1 and then into 3. Oh, he's just squeezed Gyasi a little bit, I feel.
Yeah.
I think he could have left a little more space potentially.
Yeah, I think that's on Sebastian. I think he was optimistic that if he went a little bit deeper on the brakes, he'd have the space to get back over on line. But you're right. I think Gyasi was always going to be there. And Sebastian, a little bit too hopeful and caused himself the trip and slide out of it. So it was a decent battle up the hill. They were 3 wide behind, but it didn't really give him much space to work with.
Drivers caught up in the opening lap incident. Ramstein, Casabon, Sedgwick, Backham, Walters, Ricardo Rico as well. All in the pits right now, so major dramas on lap 1, and we're still getting them happen here throughout this race. Top 16 are in a queue, although the front 2 of Østgaard and Ellis Jr. trying to make a little bit of a break for it here, because they're trying to break the toe. Østgaard's trying to break the toe of Kevin Ellis Jr., and Ellis Jr. wants to try and keep in that draft, but also break the draft of De Jong behind.
It's a tricky one, and I understand it. Østgaard's in the lead. He wants to defend that position. But Ellis Jr., if they can get a draft train going and get further up the road, there's less chance that De Jong hooks onto it. It is about a second for the draft, so he's right on the back of it. Whereas, if they continue to weave and dip and dive with each other, that's going to come down. Mitch is going to keep catching them, and then now you bring everyone back toward you. So you almost, again, you're not teammates, not even a team's championship for that matter, but you're not teammates, but you need to work together and get away and then have your battle, because you can already see it. The gap's down to half a second.
Yeah, well, let's hear from Connery what's been happening.
Well, less at the start of this race and more in the warm-up. Daniel Lafuente talking with his teammates, with his spotters during the warm-up of this race. Let's take a listen.
Have a little bit of a warm-up, mate. Let's get ourselves back into the right mentality. Ignore the first race. We're starting 30th. Fresh race, fresh car. See what we can do.
Well, that's the driver coach there for Daniel Lafuente, just telling him to get his head in the game, get his focus back. It's always helpful to have a voice of reason in the driver's ears. If they get too over their heads, gets them back in the right mental state to go chasing for positions during the race.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got one of his compatriots as well in front of him, in Josh Thompson. So the two of them looking to maybe work together and try and work their way forward here. Speaking of forward, though, here's your race leader. It's Østgaard with Ellis Jr. hounding him all over the gearbox and the engine of that Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car into turn number 1. Lap 5 already. We're at lap 5 of this race. And look who's turned up to party here, Matt. Mitchell de Jong, he's tagged on now.
Yeah, he definitely has, all over it, and it's exactly what I was saying. They get kind of ducking and diving between each other, not really battling per se, but trying to break that draft. And Mitch has all the speed in the world right now. He's caught up very quickly. Great position for him to be in as well, not least of which because even though they're in the same room right now, they're sitting almost beside each other. Charlie Collins and Josh Rogers are still sitting 7th and 8th, so great chance for Mitch to get back into a great points opportunities. After that sprint race, second in the championship, but as we said, 53 points back. So this can be closed up. This is exactly what he needs, and he knows the man in front as well, Ellis Jr. He's already won a race this season. He knows he's a very good competitor, but if he can get there early enough, he's got lots of time to create his luck.
Ellis Jr. obviously likes it his time over here on the other side of the Atlantic. Of course, getting his race win in Interlagos in Brazil. Now we're here, Road America, North America. And he's finding himself in a competitive position right now. A little bit of an update for you. Sanchez, who we saw spun at turn number 5, he's down in 29th. Sebastian Job, of course, we saw that incident at turn 3. He's down in 26th and outside of the points. It's too early to say that he's out of the championship hunt, but he's really not had a good opening half to the season. It's gifted the opportunities to Josh Rogers to try and pull away. But de Jong now putting the pressure on Ellis Jr. in front, and Østgaard maybe feel he's just backing people up here at the moment with being at the front of the queue. And now Dame Warren, Williams, Bootloop, Rogers, Collins, Giassi, all there hanging around. They're getting to the back of this one now.
You know what, though? If I'm Østgaard, not my problem. I don't care if I'm backing them up. There's no one in front of me. That's the only thing that matters right now. Hold that position. He's in a great spot. We're a quarter of the way through the race. Whether or not he can hold it, maybe with the pace, not so much. But the longer he does, the better he's going to be sitting as we get to the fine end of it. So yeah, forget the train.
Well, here we go, down towards the chicane at 10A and 10B. You can see the two onboards of Ellis Jr. on the bottom left, de Jong bottom right. See that main box with the action from trackside, so you can see how close each of these cars are as they go through the final corner to cross the line to start another lap here in this race. Lap 7 of the race. We're thundering towards the halfway point in this race, and the action thick and fast. But right now they're in that queue of traffic, and Dame Warren on the back of that queue now. The Australian looking hungry for another good result here, Matt.
Definitely. I mean, when is he not? He's always in this. We talked about that consistency, but yeah, good little train of cars, similar livery through the front, but Østgaard continues to lead. Williams in 5th position. We saw him in qualifying, not too happy with his first attempt at a time, but obviously he's got some pace that he was more than willing to try and chase after with Bootloop in that battle as well. Rogers may have got around him in up one position, but they can certainly contain him as well in this situation. And if they can do that and kind of work with his pace and with his strategy, there's a chance that they'll link to this battle. They just need to make sure they, again, keep it consistent.
Well, I can tell you now as we look at down in towards the chicane, and Ellis Jr. is making a move into 10A. He's wanted to progress forward to the front of the queue. He obviously feels that he's got the pace over Østgaard, and that's him moved forward. You can see now on the bottom left, it's Dame Warren's point of view behind Kevin Ellis Jr. there as they go through that final corner. So it's a change at the front then. Kevin Ellis Jr. to the head of the standings here. This queue of traffic, by the way, goes from first place all the way to Sindre Setors in 16th place. So this just tells you how close this championship is around this magnificent venue here at Road Atlanta. Plunging downhill once again, but that Ellis Jr., he obviously thinks here that he does have that pace advantage now.
It's not surprising. This is the 3rd time we've seen him do this season in a feature race. He wants to get ahead early. He knows, well, whether or not he knows, he thinks the tire advantage is better to take advantage of early rather than sit on it and try and coax them until the end in battle. It's kind of like do you attack or defend early? momentum. You know, the best offense for him is strictly that. It's not a defense. It's go on the attack as fast as possible and get away from it. So see if he can hold it. Again, he's going to try and break the toe now that he's up front, but everyone's close enough that the entire snake slithers behind. So good battle all the way through. Is Westgard close enough to go back at it? He's going to try.
He's giving it a go to the inside of 10A. Can Ellis Jr. hold that outside line? He can, but he compromised on that line, on the inside line of 10B, and that driver around the outside could get on the power earlier. Dane Warren's involved in an instant. You see it in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. He's almost up and over. He's heading to pit road. What on earth has happened to him on the exit of that chicane? We'll have to have a look at that in a moment. Don't worry, we'll get to see what has happened there. But that's what happens when you have a close pack like that. One little incident, and all of a sudden a few drivers are involved. Zach Campbell, I can tell you from my time in screen, involved. There's also Alexander Tiber, Ayachan Guven, and Josh Thompson, who was on a charge here in this race, is out of the race. They're all in the pits. There's only 26 cars running at the moment on track.
This is incredible. The fact that happened, I don't know. I want to see the further back camera angle. Obviously, we were on board and it was catastrophic, but I think the problem was that when it ricocheted down the order of the Constantina, it was actually the guys sort of sitting in the mid-team positions that got caught up in it. Everyone else was able to react in time. This gives a brake pack now, the front three a little bit further away, but look who's right back in it. You've got Maximilian Beneke all of a sudden running inside of the top 8 positions. He's in 7th. Graham Carroll's right behind. Jeff Giassi's suddenly in a great point scoring position. In fact, there's another driver, which I'll mention later in the race, that's in a position he's not found himself in all year. I just don't want to jinx it, but this is opportunity for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely, and opportunity is exactly what you need to take here. You can't look a gift horse in the mouth and not be able to do it. Here's the Vodafone replay. Let's see what's happened. So we're looking from the overhead shot. This is Zach Campbell then into the chicane. Now the question is, does he get caught out by somebody? Yeah, he gets caught out by the checkup, and it's everybody else. It's that concertina effect, as you said. There's a couple of the cars involved, and then, well, those cars coming over the brow. They don't know where the car is.
And I think we only caught part of it on that replay. I think it was about to kick off even further, because just as we cut away, there was further contact. So massive hit. Certainly the second hit was even harder for poor Dane Warren, but yeah, he checked up. I don't even think he got into the back end of DeYoung at that point. I think he just checked up. Look who's now in 4th place as well. Josh Rogers and Charlie Collins come straight through all of that, managed to avoid it, and they're in a great position.
Yeah, again, it's taking your opportunities while you can, and that's what they find themselves now. They'll have a difficulty to catch up to the front 3, and it'll only be if these front 3 then start fighting each other, where you will see Rogers, Collins, et al. All moving forward in this field. I can tell you further down, as you mentioned, Beneke up into 6th place, Graham Carroll up into 8th place as well. Marina Sarika finds himself a top 10 at the moment, and Patrick Holtzman in 11th. So you've seen those drivers who were further down your field moving their way forward, trying to get themselves a good result here today. And we saw at the last race at Silverstone that, again, there was a bit of a race of attrition there, Matt, and we're getting people taking that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of people that are benefiting from this. I mean, unfortunately, someone who is further down the order getting some points back, I suppose there's still a silver lining to it, but Sebastian Jobe would have been right there with Max Beneke, with Graham Carroll, with Jeff Giassi, who ultimately he tripped over to have that incident kick off. So another missed opportunity, despite a poor qualifying, could have had some good points. Still, again, he does make up. He was 25th before that incident. He's now running 18th, but that's just miles off, and it still doesn't really, it's poor consolation, I think, for the situation.
Charlie Collins with the fastest lap of the race. Here comes Ellis Jr. to the front of your field. We're at the halfway point of the race. And there goes Ellis Jr. to the head of the field. They need to be careful not to trip over each other and slow each other down. They plunge downhill because actually, do you know what? Rogers is now within the slipstream here. He's got the tow, he's got the draft, he's got the opportunity to drag that whole queue of traffic behind him along to the race leaders. Life is about to get a bit more difficult up at the front here then.
I get the impression right now that Mitchell de Jong wants to get on with this. He is hustling Østgaard right now. Whether that's a response to Josh suddenly being in contention for this battle and catching the pack, or if it's just a case that his tires are in position. We're 9 laps. Remember, this is a 20-lap race. We have 9 to go. He wants it. He's on it. Oh, look how much he attacks turn 5. A little bit too wide on the exit, but manages to keep it moving forward. Very easy on that AstroTurf, that wide curve, to lose the rear a little bit. If you go too wide too early, you actually catch the sand before that conjunction point of the other circuit, so the infield circuit. So it's very easy to get wrong, but looks like he got away with it. Whether or not that cost him for a chance on a run now, he's actually fallen more into the clutches of Josh than he was on the attack prior.
Well, let's speak to one of those competitors that is out. Matt, take it away with Mikkel Gade.
Yeah, Mikkel, not exactly the day you would have hoped for. I think you went off in turn 1, but we didn't fully catch it. So talk us through what happened.
No, definitely not. There was just a really, really bad rookie mistake for me. I was just looking for free. He was just behind me, like 1/10, and I thought he was gonna send it in T1, and yeah, then I just looked in the mirror and I completely forgot my braking marker, so
yeah, we just had a look.
Big rookie mistake.
Yeah, just had a look on board there, and it's it's tough with this much pressure. How have you been adapting to this series? And it's so competitive and so close all the way through.
Yeah, it's definitely the toughest series in sim racing at the moment, and you just have to be aware all the time because everyone is just trying to overtake you and look for positions. So yeah, it's really, really tough. A lot of pressure is going on.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you're under the BS Racing competition banner, and they've been super busy this year in sim, but how's the support been toward this series for you and being able to practice and get prepared each week?
Yeah, the team is supporting me for sure, and I also I'm also practicing with Brian Lockwood, so we have a partnership going on there.
Perfect. Well, good to see some experience coming from him. Unfortunately, his day didn't look like it went super well either, but such is the nature. Obviously, you got to reset, get ready for Canada. The walls are going to be tight there. I think the battling is going to be extremely fierce, so hopefully you can get it together and move forward and get some good points in the championship. Obviously, that's the important part for you.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, well, we get back into it, Paul, and at the front, it hasn't changed in terms of position, but it has in terms of the battle, because now not only has Josh Rogers joined in, but so too has Max Benecke, so too has Charlie Collins, and it's becoming a massive drag to the finish. 7 laps to go.
Yeah, this business is going to pick up in about 3 or 4 laps time when people start making their moves there. But you can see that queue of cars, 6 cars together then. Østgaard, Ellis Jr., de Jong, Rogers, Collins and Benecke round out that top 6. Graham Carroll in 7th place. He's not quite close enough to make any slipstream effect yet, but if these cars start tripping over each other, before you know it, he'll be right there with them, bringing a whole slew of drivers behind him as well. So this is going to be interesting. There you see Carroll at the head of this with Williams, Giassi, Sarika, Holtzman and Setsors in that second group. So that is another 6 cars together in this. So 2 lots of 6 find themselves together as they plunge downhill into that braking zone. Giassi looking to make some moves there on Williams. Williams trying to hold on to the 8th place and get himself a good result, as Giassi actually now comes under pressure from behind, as here comes Sarika, and Sarika making moves there, and that's exactly how you make one move, onto the grass there, compromised his exit out that final corner there, Matt. But it shows how if you make the move into the chicane, you can actually be under pressure on the exit of it.
Yeah, absolutely you can. It just depends strictly on how far alongside, how clean you make the pass in A, because otherwise you lose the apex at B, and you're suddenly on the back foot over the hill. We saw how much drama that can cause earlier on. Just quick to point out as well, we mentioned in the first race, Jeremy Bootsluis, someone we've seen great pace from this year, but hasn't had that consistency. He as well kind of caught up in that incident. He's back now running with Sebastian Job in 17th place. So unfortunate situation that, again, he always gets caught up in something and can't quite put that pace to to use. And Tommy Østgaard's another this year. He started the year off with a 3rd place in his first sprint race of the season, but now we're seeing him at least holding that front position. It's crazy how the fortunes can change when you get a nice clean run and get it all together.
Speaking of runs, Kevin Ellis Jr. swapping positions again at the head of his standings. There's the experienced Brit on stream right there, David Williams. In fact, De Jong putting pressure on Østgaard here out of the chicane because Rogers is right there with him. Collins is coming under pressure from Benneker behind. So they've got to be careful. They can't start attacking each other and let Kevin Ellis Jr. run away with this win. Well, he'll be thinking, go on, lads, keep on fighting. That'll help me out a great deal. Up the hill, through 2 into 3. Attack that curb on the right-hand side. You're over a crest and then again plunging downhill. We've been seeing it all evening and it has been absolutely tremendous to see. 5 laps to go in this race. As I say, it's going to be that last 3 laps, I think, here, Matt, where we really will see business pick up.
Yeah, and we've seen, you go back to Silverstone, Josh kind of sat in 2nd place behind Seb for most of the race. We've seen it in a few different spots where you're trying to let that draft be to your benefit. You can keep the tires cooler and go on the attack. That's not the case right now. We're seeing so much swapping, and I think, big slide on the curve. That gives Mitch a bit of a run, immediately defensive for Østgaard. I was going to say, that means you have to attack to get first because there's so much going on behind. You can't give up position. No one can relax. Everyone's being relentless and on the attack this race.
Well, here they are, side by side, and you know who's going to try and take advantage of this? Is Rogers. He's there. Collins is having to fight off Benneker behind him as well. So that means De Jong up into 2nd place ahead of Tommy Østgaard. Started this race on pole position and straight away on the attack. Josh Rogers looking to get a podium place right now, but Østgaard carries the speed out of the final corner around the outside. They're still side by side, just behind this battle here for 2nd. 3rd place though, Østgaard stays there. He carried the speed around the outside of turn 1. This is tremendous stuff to see, but they're just gapping out a little bit, the front 2, from that battle behind. There you can see them, that little bit of a gap. That's not going to be enough though to see the front 2 waltz away at the front here, Matt.
But you can see how one little mistake, Østgaard got a bit of a slide coming out of turn 7. The straightaway leads after it, loses a position, nearly lost 2 by the end of the lap. I mean, it's just so cutthroat. And this is what I'm saying. You can't really relax this race and play that tire strategy. And Ellis Jr., we know he likes to go. That's turned the wick up for everybody, and everybody is constantly looking for position. There's no strategy in it other than, well, perhaps this break the toe if you can, as we've seen many times over, everyone trying to do so.
Well, you've got to be careful with that strategy as well as to how you place your car. 2 by 2 for the lead positions. And it's De Jong to the head of the field now, ahead of Ellis Jr. We've got battle for 7th going on. That's been compromised, and Sarika's now up into 8th. Williams made a mistake at the chicane, and Gyasi's trying to follow Sarika through. You see in the bottom left-hand box. We've also got the battle for 14th as Williams on the grass there. He's really been freight-trained in that one, and as you mentioned there, one little mistake. Contact between Holtzman and Williams. Williams into the grass. In 1.
You had to see it coming. Holtzman saw the inside once the slide happened off of turn 12, and he was never going to relinquish that position. It's tough because turn 1, you carry so much speed. It's not a huge breaking point. You want to get it up the hill, but you need to use all the track to do it, and unfortunately not the space for either both of the ego in that situation or the car, because I don't think either of them was about to give position to the other. As we look back to the front, and it's Ellis Jr. Does he go back by? Does we see another change for the position? 3 to go. At this point, you're looking to finalize your position with these battles.
Down the back stretch they go once again through 8, heading towards turn 9, which is the sweeping right-hander. Here's Ellis Jr. looking to make the move, trying to get a bit of side draft there as well. And behind them, Østgaard and Rogers battling away. Benneker trying to get involved in that one as well. Rogers now making the move, trying to stay ahead of Østgaard, but Ellis Jr. has managed to stay ahead of De Jong for the lead with 2 to go here in this feature race. Well, we'll have a look then at the Vodafone replay as what happened to David Williams here, who was getting freight trained down the order here. There's Holtzman down the inside of 1, and Williams turns in. Holtzman hits the curb. I think that curb pushed Holtzman a little bit wide there, to be fair.
Tough to see that from that angle, but either way, I think Racing Room could have been given a little bit more by Williams. He's definitely trying to hold as much speed as he can. You always want to pinch the driver, but you have to consider the curve. Those are things you have to be aware of in those situations. So yeah, no fault to Holtzy. I think he was far enough in there to claim the corner, and I think more could have been done for Williams, because even if he gives him a little bit more space, compromises his speed, if he can hold the outside, with the amount of speed Holtzy's holding off that corner, he's probably going to have to lift up the hill, and you get the braking done for turn 3.
I just saw on the left-hand tower then, Holtzman has dropped down to 15th, so he's had issues out there. Graham Carroll's flashing his headlights. He's on his own there at the moment. Bit of a no man's land for him.
He's just asking them to wait for him.
Absolutely. De Jong to the front now. This is important now because he's got himself to the lead of this queue, and we're about to start the final lap of the race. Just a minute and 22-ish remaining of this race here today. Across the line they go. Rogers looking towards turn number 1, decides against it for second place on Ellis Jr. Jr.'s got to wait for the run really out of turn 7. The slipstream down the back stretch, but he's got to be careful because there you see De Jong on the bottom left, your race leader. Rogers, third place, bottom right view. Those two trying to team up and trying to get ahead of Ellis Jr. for Rogers. He wants as many points as he can. De Jong, he wants Ellis Jr. there between them to give himself as many points back against Rogers in the championship. So it's a really tricky situation. Into turn 7. The run out of this corner is the most important thing that they will get here in this race. In the background, there's Benneker and Collins swapping positions. So Benneker got a great run out of 7. Here's the defensive move from De Jong. Ellis Jr. having to go right. Rogers, where does he go in all of this? Well, he's having to sit behind the two of them in the lead. Through the chicane, 10A, 10B, De Jong's around. De Jong's made contact, and here comes Rogers down the inside of 11. He's going to have the inside for the final corner. There's a little rub. Ellis Jr. runs wide into the wall, and he ends up in third place because Erstgaard is up there ahead. Look at that. Rogers, he cannot believe it. My goodness, a double race win. We've got more contact further down in your field as well as they go across the line. Good grief. Well, they make it across the line. There's 2 more cars to finish in this one, but Matt, that was a sensational end.
Yeah, I think that was Carlos Fenalosa that actually lost it on the final corner, and that would be heartbreaking if it was the case. Okay, I can say it because I think he comes home in 24th. I didn't want to jinx him. It was the first time all year he was in a point-scoring position, but nearly gave that up. What a finish. Rogers perfectly positioned to take advantage of that final battle.
Yeah, Rogers wins this one again. A double win for Rogers ahead of Erstgaard and Ellis Jr., who ends up in third place ahead of Benneker. Collins, Carroll, Sarika, Giassi, Setsos, Johan Hart in 10th place, gained 22 places in that race. Tetela, Fluke, Lafuente, De Jong, Holtzman finishes in 15th in the end ahead of Williams and Bootloop. Sebastian Job, he'll be disappointed with that down in 18th place ahead of Sanchez and Talons. Brian Lockwood gets some points ahead of Pekka Toivonen. Christopher Dam beats Carlos Fenalosa with Ricardo Castroledo and Martin Krunka. And that was it. 26 cars finished the race. The rest of them were all out of this race. It was a true race of attrition out there in round number 5 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing 2021. But right now, we head on to your Buzz post-race show here. And, well, we take a breath here, Matt, because we get to have a look at what happened at the front there.
Yeah, and exactly this. 7 was all important. And coming out of 5, it looked like Ellis Jr. was going to be too far away, but he absolutely nails the exit, gets a good run. Final lap, you're always going to see defense. Breaking the toe, and then De Jong realizes, okay, I've got to stop before the breaking point, hold my position, pick my line, and he forces him to the outside. That's the smart thing to do, but it left just enough of an overlap And as a result of it, in fact, he's slightly ahead under braking, but as a result of it, they both battle for the same track position, and it's just a slight touch, the slightest touch. And at that point, it's just De Jong that's out of it, but it puts Kevin Ellis Jr. enough on the back foot that Josh Rogers gets up on it. There's still overlap, and he doesn't want to give up third position, tries to tuck in behind too soon, and catches himself out. Fortunately, slides across the line and keeps the podium position, but loses out on second place to Tommy Østgaard, that's his best result of the season.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant stuff from Østgaard. He'll be delighted with that. Second place, he got a third place in the opening sprint race of the championship here. We're waiting to get words with a few of the drivers. I've been looking at our driver cams as well, and Carlos Fenolosa is absolutely livid, I can see, with that instant in the final corner. He was on for a tremendous result. He does end up getting himself 2 points. It's the first 2 points of his championship, but he is absolutely livid about that. He is not happy at all.
Yeah, and I think he was up in something like 21st position, which is 5 points as opposed to 2, and that would jump him up a little bit further in that championship. Remember, we're halfway through, but it's the top 20 that regain status in this championship and return for the next season. The others are all relegated and have to requalify. So it seems like, okay, well, big deal. He hasn't scored points, not the championship. It does still very much matter. And for him, that could have been a little bit more as we look at another replay. This is a little bit further back with Alejandro Sanchez, who was in the wars from the very, very start, and Brian Lockwood, who didn't exactly have the greatest of days, Paul.
Well, this is him battling with Fenolosa. So this is what happened towards the end. A little bit of a squeeze through the chicane. There's a dive down the inside from one of the curvers. You don't go 3 wide through turn 11 and 12. And there's nowhere. Brian's stuck between a rock and a hard place there, isn't he? Is the car in the middle, and Fenolosa is the one that loses out in that pole.
Yeah, and Fenolosa's thinking, guys, I can't stay out here. This is a fast downhill section. I'm going to wash the front of the car and understeer off if I don't turn in sooner or later. And unfortunately for him, when he turned in, the other two were still trying to find their position. So yeah, I can see his frustration. That's aggressive to go 3 wide. But at the same time, I can see the desperation to try and get position. It's the final corner. It's your final chance. But I think discretion could have been used there. And unfortunately, Carlos had nowhere to go.
Well, we finally get to speak to our race winners. Matt, take it away.
Finally, yeah. And what a race indeed. Josh, obviously battling through. You proved your point. But I don't think it came as easily as you expected. That took a while and even a bit of luck perhaps at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that last lap, it was always going to be difficult. I haven't watched the incident back, so I'm not going to comment on it. But yeah, I mean, that whole race, I think, to be honest, it was a lot harder to pass than I thought it was. I'm sweating bullets and huffing and puffing, but no, awesome. Results for the team overall. Obviously, the feature race didn't necessarily go to plan for everybody, but we showed we had strong speed, especially in qualifying. So it'll be nice to be able to take that into the rounds ahead. But that was a fun race. I think draft was always going to be a massive, massive factor. Being in the right place at the right time at the right moment, I think is kind of everything. And to be honest, for the circuits throughout the rest of the season as well, we're going to see a similar trend. So yeah, it's a very different racing style this year, but one I enjoy.
Walk us through that a little bit as well, because obviously you're sitting in third, they're side by side. You're not really sure at that point where do you position yourself? How did you decide on that one?
I think for me, it was more so kind of trying to position myself, always looking a few corners ahead. I always had the plan that, okay, at least initially, my first plan was on the second last lap, I need to get past both of them. That way I can kind of control a little bit which line we all take on the final lap. Obviously, that didn't happen. So my second plan was to just try and kind of hope a little bit if I couldn't get a run and try and put myself in the best position possible. Entering the last chicane, I was trying to stay a little bit further over to the right. Kevin obviously had a bit of a run. So ultimately, and he was always going to try and brake as hard and late as he could around the outside so I could kind of follow him in the same process. But yeah, I saw he went a little bit deep, probably cooked the rear tire a little bit. So I kind of knew that he was going to lack a little bit of overall grip in that second to last corner, which ultimately pushed him a little bit deeper and allowed me to kind of get the undercut. Obviously, it was really close in the end, too close for comfort, but yeah, it was awesome.
Well, congratulations. That's a heck of a win. First double of the season by any driver, so that's obviously huge for the championship.
Yeah, I mean, points-wise, I'm not sure what it's at the moment, but I think a few of the other contenders had a couple issues. So yeah, we'll just try and keep the consistency going. I think that's the most important thing this year.
Well, we'll see you in a week's time in Canada, and maybe we can see more of the same.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, and obviously that further back down means we have to talk to someone who had the best results of the season. And it came at the very last corner to get the second place, Tommy Oostgaard, with a great race overall, great pace today, I think, altogether. 8th place finish gave you the pole in the feature, but did you think you had the pace? Because for a while it was almost like it was just a matter of time that they might get by.
Yeah, I was just focused on trying to do my best. I knew my qualifying pace was pretty decent. I messed up my lap, lost 2 tenths in the final chicane, so I knew I had the pace if I nailed every single corner. So just had to push on and try to stay in front as much as I could. With Kevin there, I didn't want to give up too many positions, so I tried to stay up in front. And yeah. At the end, I was really happy with P4. I think that was a great result, but luckily got P2 somehow at the end there. Very unfortunate for Mitchell. He deserved better than that. So yeah, very, very happy after a really, really tough start to 2021. So it's more of a relief than anything else, to be honest.
Well, what do you think the key is? Because obviously the first sprint race of the year, you came out and you had a 3rd position and everything looked great, but then it hasn't quite gone to plan. You've obviously got the pace, but what do you think you need to do to translate that to results?
First of all, I've been really unlucky. I was crashed out in the first feature race. I was crashed out at Barcelona in the sprint race, being P8. At Imola, I was crashed out being P14 in the feature race. At Silverstone, I made a small mistake with Sebi, and then I was crashed out from P11 in the feature race. Daytona, we were crashed out. BCO races have been crashed out. So, I mean, just been really unlucky. I've been trying to up my racecraft, because if you're crashed out every single race, maybe you're doing something wrong. So
well, I was going to ask you, I know it seems like bad luck, and I don't mean this to be offensive or put the blame on you, but how do you change that? How do you change your luck?
Exactly. So I've been doing a lot of racing, some AI runs on this track as well. Try to look at all the incidents, see if there's anything that happens in each of the incidents. But yeah, I think a lot of it was just down to being unfortunate. But I've been trying to work on my racecraft and make sure that I don't put myself in vulnerable situations.
All right. Well, hey, it worked out today. Good result. Best of the season for you. Maybe we'll see more of that moving forward because the pace is certainly there.
I certainly hope so. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, great race overall. I think I have to say, Paul. And he's right. He did benefit a little bit. But again, as he said, he's been in that position to lose out on some situations and unfortunately go further back in the field as a result. This time he gets forward. Kevin Ellis Jr. Kellis, there's your new name, buddy. Kellis. That was a heck of a race. You like to attack early with tires, but that was back and forth the whole way through and then dramatic at the end. I'll let you explain all of that.
Yeah, it was a case of just trying to manage the tires as best we could. I knew they were going to fall off quite a bit as the race went. The track was quite slick, so I knew that the tires would get quite difficult at the end. So I was just trying to manage when I would go. If I had a gap behind that I could sort of not take the run, then I would back out and just play it safe. But if the guy behind was a bit close, then I would take the position just to make sure. But yeah, it was great all race long. I'm really sorry to Mitchell that it ended that way. I left more than enough space. He left more than enough space. It just one of them things, unfortunately. I think it's something that needs to be looked into for sure, because it's ruining the racing quite a bit. Like that shouldn't happen. There was more than enough space. So just a shame it ended that way with him. And then obviously Josh just gave a little hip check coming to the line there, and that dropped us to P3. Maybe I turned in a bit early. I'm not really sure, but all in all, I'm a bit gutted to not get the win or even P2 today. But we got to look at the positives on the podium again. So yeah, I'll take it and run.
Yeah, well, and again, you say it. I mean, a lot of the guys want to sit back and draft and kind of save tires. You seem to be the one that wants to attack, and it certainly makes things exciting. So same approach maybe next week in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, we need to see. Canada's a really tough track. I'm going to really get my head down this week and put the hours in to make sure I'm competitive there. And honestly, today came as a bit of a surprise. My pace wasn't anything special in practice, so just made sure to execute all day. We managed to do that. Didn't really have too many issues, too many scary moments. It was pretty relaxed up at the front. Everyone was pretty smart. It was good battling those Coanda guys. And again, just sorry to Mitchell that it ended that way. Hopefully Canada will be a bit better for that.
All right. Well, hey, good race, good result either way. And congratulations on the podium.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Paul, I think we'll have a pretty good picture. I mean, this is the halfway point. These two races, rounds 5 and 6, North American side of things. And this is where we say huge. It's not massive, but it is a pretty impressive gap for Josh at the front.
Well, it's over a race now. It's over a race,
right,
a weekend's worth of points now between him and Mitchell de Jong. So that's crucial for Josh to take that into the second half of the championship. Charlie Collins, what a season he's having for the rookie to be in third place. Kevin Ellis Jr., though, right there with him in fourth place, with Dane Warren, the unfortunate Dane Warren, in that down in fifth place. Sebastian Job, 148 points off. It's going to be a tall order and a tough ask for him to make his way up the order to challenge for the championship. And looking further down as well, Krunka on the danger zone along with Diogo Pinto of staying in automatic qualification for next season. So that is his standings as they are after this round number 5 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. But next time out, we are going to be heading further north to Montreal, Quebec, and it is the fabulous Circuit de Villeneuve for round number 6. And that'll be next week, same time, same place. And that, well, I mean, if you thought there was slipstream in here, this one's going to be incredible. So yeah, that's next week then in Canada. But, well, final thoughts then, Matt. Tremendous racing again and a dominant display in the end by Josh Rogers.
Yeah, very much so. He shows racecraft. You know, the pace is so close with everyone, and he just seems to be able to find his way through over and over again. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in Canada, going to Montreal. Porsche Cup races here in real life, and it's always the most exciting race of the weekend. And I expect, like you say, lots of drafting. Walls are damn close, and the sausage curbs going into the final chicane. The Wall of Champions is famous for a reason. So, yeah, it's going to be the survival of the fittest in Canada, I think.
And Connery, you have the unique view. You know, what do you think going forward into next week?
Well, based on this week, of course, this week was more of a tale of two races, wasn't it? It was a very calm, very measured, at least at the front for the sprint race. A little bit more chaotic with some action at the very front at the end of the feature, which is what we love to see. But I think Montreal's going to be a completely different beast because it is basically the only street circuit on the calendar. There is not a lot of room to maneuver here. Even when these guys go to wide open circuits, they're bumping and banging off of each other. So once we get to a tight and twisty street circuit, then that problem is just exacerbated. But hopefully the drivers can keep things together and not have too chaotic of a start to the race, for example.
Matt, Connery, thank you very much for your contributions today. As always, well, that was a dramatic, exciting, thrilling race here at Road Atlanta. Next week, we'll be seeing you in Quebec. And until next time, it's goodbye from everybody here on this broadcast. Goodbye.